Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll see what happens. We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I am a dissident.
Don't move.
I'm saying no. Why you hear Palantir, 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 Palantir? It's not going to be stopped.
Seriously, we need to release the F-scene list.
Turns off. I am not a church boy. Turns off.
They're full-on vampires.
They hate our beef. They hate our beef. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here. Russell Dobular coming back in. He just got kicked out. I don't know what happened. There he is. Kind of. His screen is all black. I don't know what's going on. What's going on over there? Nothing. Not seeing him. Gonna see. This is there.
All
right. You there? You might have to turn on whatever thing you jinxed before the show or you said was working really well. Now it's not working. You might want to turn on whatever you were doing.
We're just gonna
I don't know. I can't hear you. See, this is what you call blowback, folks. This is imperial blowback. See, we bombed Cambodia 50 years ago, and this is why you can't do that, because now when he goes to Cambodia, we don't have the Wi-Fi to do our show. See, you see how the innocents are really destroyed by United States imperialism. You know, this is like Tel Aviv getting a rocket. You know, same concept. You know, this is why these things can't happen. This is why we do what we do. This is why we advocate for peace. You see, because this is what you call blowback. Dobular has been kidnapped, says Reformed Morning Star. Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. We got 726 of you lovely folks in the YouTube chat. We got 303 filing in over on Rumble. Appreciate you all very much. I'll see what the plan is with Russell here. But let me see. Is he going to switch to his data? Let me see. Yeah, he had everything loaded in, and then it kicked him out in the interim, in the countdown, shall we say. But hey, thanks everybody very much for being here. I see Kit. I see Hardlands Media in the chat. Shout out to you, Kit. All right, so yeah, Russ is going to switch over to his data plan and then come back in. All right, well, hey, while he's getting that sorted out, I thought I should play this video for you. We were going to maybe open with this video. Here's a piece of good news for a change, you know. Don't get much good news nowadays. You talk about the soul of America being kind of rotted out, you know. It feels like the empire is sort of devouring itself from within. Well, there you go. See, now you're coming through clear. All right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I got to reload my stuff. So.
All right. So now he's on data. They're on the data. I was explaining to people how this is really the price of these imperial wars. You know, we destroyed the Cambodian people's infrastructure, and then, you know, obviously the real tragedy of that is that, you know, we have trouble podcasting from there years later.
Yeah. Okay. All right. This is really interesting.
Very sad.
And you want to talk about, all right, look, I don't want to credit Douglas Murray. God knows. But I will say, if you haven't been someplace, there are certain things that you just would not know unless you go there. All right. So this is going to blow your mind. The Cambodians, like the younger Cambodians, mostly don't really know about the history. They don't teach it to them. They don't know about it. Like, I first picked up on this. I was interviewing a monk, and I asked him about the Khmer Rouge, and he didn't seem to know what that was, or like only very vaguely. So then tonight I was having a conversation with the guy who owned the restaurant I was in, and I asked him about that history because he was talking about how much his gas prices went up and how his customers are gone over the last 3 weeks because not as many Westerners are coming. So I asked him, so how do the Cambodian people feel about that history of America and the bombings? They said most of them don't really know about it. I said, what do you mean they don't know about it? They don't teach about it in school? He said, no. And I was like, but you have a museum here. I'm going to it tomorrow. It's right in the city. He said, nobody goes to that. I said, they don't bring school children to teach them that history? He said, no. I said, so what is it? Tourists go there? He said, yeah.
Yeah.
I said, why? And he said, because Cambodian people, why you want to put that in your mind? You want to be happy. You want to have a happy mind. Why do you want to think about all these things and then maybe you're going to get angry or sad or upset? You don't want to have that in your mind.
No, they just want to fuck their fish, drive their car.
They just want to fuck the koi. And I said, but the Vietnamese seem to be pretty happy people, but at the same time, they never forget that history. He said the Vietnamese people are different. You kill one Vietnamese, 10 are going to come after you. You kill one Cambodian, 10 Cambodians are going to run. We're not those kind of people. We don't like to think about those things.
Interesting.
Like, all right. Okay. I mean, okay, so that's something you would never know unless you came here. Like I've never seen anybody make that observation.
Yeah, that's true. You would not know that until you went. All right, so you're going to load your stuff in. While you're doing that, I do want to play this piece of video. We were thinking about opening with this, but this went mega viral. You know, you talk about America losing its soul. Where's that American spirit, right? Is it all just about money now? Are we all just chasing that bag of cash? Or are there people out there who have a more sophisticated understanding of the meaning of life? So we take you to Kentucky, where this woman was offered $26 million for her plot of land on which the buyer was going to build one of these AI data centers. And she said no. So let's take a look.
I'll stay and hold and feed a nation. 26 million doesn't mean anything.
Some people might find it hard to understand how Delcia Bear can turn away a $26 million offer to buy some of her land until you spend a little time with her walking the dirt road she grew up on and in the house her daddy built.
My grandfather and great-grandfather and a whole bunch of family has all lived here for years, paid taxes on it, fed a nation off of it, even raised wheat through the Depression and kept the bread lines up in the United States of America when people didn't have anything else.
Delcia is one of dozens of landowners approached by an anonymous buyer, one of the major players in artificial intelligence, likely Google or Meta or Amazon, to purchase their land. The market value for land in Mason County is about $6,000 an acre. The realtor that came to her door last April offered her and her mother about 10 times that.
They call us old stupid farmers, but we're not. We know whenever our food is disappearing, our lands are disappearing, and we don't have any water and poison, we know we've had it.
Delcia's mom, Ida Huddleston, is now 82 years old. She says she does not need the money or the hassle. She was born on this land and she plans to die here, and she certainly does not trust the promises made by the AI companies or the people who want them to build here.
So what do you say to the people who are in town that say, hey, this is going to bring jobs, this is going to bring economic prosperity?
I say they're a liar and the truth ain't in them. Is what I say. It's a scam.
For Delcia, scam or not, she says she's connected to her home like Scarlett O'Hara was in Gone with the Wind.
As long as she was attached to that land, her spirit never would die. And that's the exact same thing for me right here. As long as I'm on this land, as long as it's feeding me, as long as it's taking care of me, there's nothing that can destroy me if I've got this land.
Should have said, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. And left. That would have been a mic drop. mic drop moment for the end of that segment.
Oh, God damn it.
That was crazy, though. How about that? Go ahead. What happened?
I'm having problems. I was afraid of this, man. I think the whole grid here is kind of bad. Know what I mean?
All right. Well, should we ask Kit to jump on if he's in
Like
the
everything
chat?
got bombed here.
You want to bail? Yeah, I could do with Kit. Do a few segments with Kit.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's going to straighten itself out. I mean, my shit's all loaded in.
Yeah, it's in
I
there.
don't know, man.
It
Talk.
didn't disappear. All right. Well, no, I saw a bunch of tweets in response to that. There were a lot of these people who were out there tweeting in response to that. They were quote tweeting that because that got like millions of views. I mean, that went super viral like overnight. That was like the top trending story on X. And you had a bunch of people be like, of course you should have taken the money. Of course, what you do is if you're worried about losing land, what you do is you take the 26 million and then you buy another plot of land. And like, that's obviously not the point. The point is that that's her land. She feels a connection to that land, and she also sees the encroachments upon this land for use, like things of the data center variety and the new AI infrastructure. They see that as predatory and inherently bad for the soul of America. It's like a step back in time where you see a person there who cares about something more than money. That's like Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life type of territory there. Different ethos from now. Times have changed where she seems like a fish out of water. All right, you want to get started?
I am pleased to report that the United States of America and the country of Iran have had over the last 2 days very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. Based on the tenor and tone of these in-depth, detailed, and constructive conversations, which, by the way, which on a broom, which, WITCH, will continue throughout the week. This is how you know Trump wrote this one. I have instructed the Department of War to postpone any and all military strikes against Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure for a 5-day period, subject to the success of the ongoing meetings and discussions. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Trump was asked about what the points of agreement are between himself and the regime.
Many. What can you give us a
Many,
of those?
like 15 points.
Like 15.
15 points.
At least
They're not
15.
gonna have a nuclear weapon. That's number one. That's number 1, 2, and 3. They will never have a nuclear weapon. They've agreed to that.
Yeah, no, they said yes to that. Yeah, no, absolutely. And, then he was asked who they're talking to over there.
A top person. Don't forget, we've wiped out the leadership phase 1, phase 2, and largely phase 3. But we're dealing with the man who I believe is the most respected and the leader. It's a little tough. We've wiped out everybody.
Is that the Supreme Leader?
No, not the Supreme Leader. We don't. Well, nobody heard of the second Supreme Leader, the son. Nobody. We have not heard from the son. Every once in a while, you'll see a statement made, but we haven't. We don't know if he's living. But the people that seem to be running it, and they seem that based on really fact, because things they've said have taken place.
Mr. President,
again.
Mr. President, I know you've deployed.
Because I don't want him to be killed. Okay, I don't want him to be killed.
Mr. President, you've deployed.
Nobody wants to be that. Nobody wants that job right now. Nobody's exactly looking forward to being the head of that particular country, but perhaps we'll be able to solve that problem.
Mr. President,
So I don't want to name him because he might be killed, and then in the next breath imply that you might kill him. Nobody wants that job, but we might take care of that particular problem there. And then completely veering into fantasy land, he was asked, pretty far down that road already, was asked about how the Strait of Hormuz will be handled under this deal that supposedly they're working on.
Who's going to be in control of
That'll
that?
be opened very soon if this works.
How soon? And who's in control of it? Will Iran still be able to control the flow of oil?
Be jointly controlled.
By who?
Maybe me. Maybe me. Me and the Ayatollah, whoever the Ayatollah is, whoever the next Ayatollah. Look, and there'll also be a form of a very serious form of a regime change. Now, in all fairness, everybody's been killed from the regime. They're really starting off. There's automatically a regime change. But we're dealing with some people that I find to be very reasonable, very solid. The people within know who they are. They're very respected. And maybe one of them will be exactly what we're looking for. Look at Venezuela, how well that's working out. We are doing so well in Venezuela with oil and with the relationship between the president-elect and us. And maybe we find somebody like that in Iran.
We're probably not going to be able to entice them into our creepy cult sex parties. They don't really roll like that. But I do believe me and the Ayatollah could be tiptoeing through the oil fields by next year. That's what I envision. That's what we're working for. A senior Iranian foreign ministry official. There are no negotiations underway with the United States. We reject Trump's claim about ongoing talks, and the Islamic Republic of Iran will not accept any negotiations until its objectives in the war are achieved. Trump's remarks are a retreat from his earlier threats, but Iran's position has not changed. As for the Strait of Hormuz, we reaffirm that this passage will remain closed to aggressors. And they added, there is no direct contact with Trump, not even through intermediaries. Trump retreated after hearing that our targets would be all power plants in West Asia. Now, this was very much a developing story over the course of the day. Iran struck Israel after Trump made this grand announcement, apparently pretty hard, and also other Arab countries. It looks like, based on everything that's out there, this is what's actually happening. There was some kind of meeting in Egypt with Pakistan and Turkey and Egypt involved. And they have been making, particularly Pakistan, some kind of contact with Iran. But Iran's answer has been, well, we're not ending this war without our demands being met. And the demands are very high, like reparations for the damage, withdrawal of U.S. forces, the end of war. According to some of this, is Jeremy Scahill from Dropsite News, says his Iranian sources says one of their demands are the end of strikes against Iraq and against Lebanon. That's a story that's kind of fallen off the map, what Israel is doing to Lebanon, because there's so much focus on what's happening with Iran, which is clearly part intentional. That's part of why they're seizing the opportunity. Here's from France 24, a little bit about what Iran wants.
Demands have not changed. The Iranian demands right the way from the start of this were we want the closure of all U.S. bases in the region before we reopen the Strait of Hormuz. We want $2 million for every U.S. and allied ship which is going to cross the Strait of Hormuz, or else we're not going to let them through. And then the other one is we want $100 billion worth of reparations to be paid by Israel and by the United States for all the damage they've inflicted on Iran. Well, that has certainly not, as far as we can see from what Donald Trump has been saying, been part of the discussions that have been taking place with these mysterious Iranian leaders over the past few hours.
Okay. And Trita Parsi has been getting into this angle on it. Energy industry insider in Iran tells me the following, and it is stunning. Before the war, Iran produced just shy of 1.1 million barrels of oil per day and sold it at $65 per barrel minus $18 discount, $47. Today, it produces 1.5 million barrels a day and sells it at $110 with only $2 to $4 discount. And this does not include petrochemical sales that not only have increased, but are now being sold to a larger set of customers compared to before the war. Moreover, Iran is receiving payments through new mechanisms that bypass the UAE, which were set up after the June war. In essence, and this is really important to understand, Trump and Israel's war has ended up delivering Iran de facto sanctions relief. This means that Iran is all the less incentivized to end the war unless the agreement provides Iran with formal sanctions relief. So very much like Russia, winning. Everyone that we're supposed to have animosity towards, all of our adversaries, so-called adversaries, we're all coming out pretty well. And maybe that's why Donald Trump walked off his plane looking like he just got beat up with a stick by Melania for being an impotent jackass. He's not looking good. That's looking like a guy who fucked around and found out. No swagger there. All right. So, hey, our greatest ally here has responded to these developments, or his AI avatar has. We don't know. But here it is. Either way. Shut up with that fucking Hebrew. Goddamn made up fucking Esperanto bullshit. Earlier today, I spoke with our friend President Trump. President Trump believes there is a chance to leverage the tremendous achievements of the IDF and the U.S. military in order to achieve the war objectives in the agreement, an agreement that will safeguard our vital interests. At the same time, we continue to attack both in Iran and in Lebanon. We are cutting the missile program and the nuclear program tight and continue to hit Hezbollah hard. Okay. All right. So kind of signaling, yeah, man, we're going to keep attacking. We're going to keep attacking. We're going to keep going. But hey, this whole thing seems kind of strange, right? This whole thing seems very strange that out of nowhere, Trump clearly just made up some nonsense about deep negotiations and agreements. I mean, that was, you want to talk about an Eric Cartman moment. What are the points of agreement? Hey, a lot of things. There are 15. There are at least 15 points of solid agreement. Iranian media figured out the pattern. Trump's threats spike every weekend when financial markets are closed. Monday morning, calming tweets. Quote, we are dealing with a very sophisticated psychological operation with an economic dimension. That's interesting. Chris Murphy knows the same thing. Trump isn't announcing a pause on strikes. He's saying he's postponing a possible war crime. Strikes on Iran's civilian energy infrastructure. Yes, that is a war crime, by the way. Not that this crew cares. Also, this isn't a message to Iran. It's a panicky message to the markets. No war escalation until markets close on Friday. Well, you know, for at least one person in Trump's inner circle, it was more than that. Maybe Trump had somebody lay down a bet for him. This is absolutely insane. This is the Kobasi letter. At 7:04 a.m., President Trump said the U.S. and Iran have had productive discussions to end the Iran war. By 7:10, the S&P 500 surged 240 points adding $2 trillion in market cap. 27 minutes later, Iran completely denied all of President Trump's claims and said there has been no contact with the U.S. By 8 a.m., the S&P 500 had fallen 120 points, crashing $1 trillion in market cap. That's a $3 trillion swing market cap in 56 minutes just in the S&P 500. What is happening here? And there's a little chart showing you the action there. It's now shoots right up at Trump's announcement and then kind of tapers off after Iran responds. Unusual whales. Breaking. Just 5 minutes before Trump's announcement to halt the attacks on Iran, massive trades reportedly hit the market. In one move, 1.5 billion in S&P 500 futures was bought, while 192 million in oil futures was sold. These orders were 4 to 6 times larger than anything else at the time. The traders seemingly made huge gains. Unusual, yeah, I'll say. Okay, a little further breakdown of this. Whoever did this wasn't guessing. You don't risk 1.5 billion on a hunch. There was zero public indication this announcement was coming. No leaks, no press, nothing. The only people who knew were in the room when the decision was made. Someone in that room picked up a phone, and within minutes, they made more money than most Americans will earn in 1,000 lifetimes in a single trade on a war that cost you $4 gas and $16 billion in tax dollars. American citizens funded this war. Politicians are positioned to profit from it. This is not the first time. Major announcements have repeatedly been preceded by suspicious market moves, tariff reversals, policy shifts, war decisions. This may be one of the most blatant examples of potential insider advantage in modern American politics. You would go to prison for trading on a tip from your cousin. Yet billion-dollar trades happen minutes before decisions like this, and no one asks questions. Nobody gets investigated. Nobody gets charged. By tomorrow, this will be buried under the next headline, just like last time and the time before that. The game is rigged. The insiders pull the strings and win over and over, and they're not even trying to hide it anymore. Yeah, well said. I mean, you're talking about somebody who has a spare $1.5 billion laying around, and even though it is a cabinet of oligarchs, that kind of money, I'm betting on Lutnick calling his sons and telling them to place the bet, or Besant. That would be my guess, but who knows? It could be Trump through an intermediary. Certainly would not put it past him. And hey, right after this, news breaks. Pentagon officials weigh deployment of air troops to Iran per the New York Times. And finally, this from Tukey. So let me get this straight. This morning, Trump announced he's halting attacks on Iran. Someone made $1.5 billion trading on that news 5 minutes before the announcement. And now tonight, the Pentagon is weighing deployment of air troops to Iran. So the piece that someone made $1.5 billion off of lasted about 12 hours. The pause was never peace. It was a window long enough for someone to collect, short enough for the war machine to reload. They halted the attacks just long enough for the markets to move, and now the troops are going in anyway. You are not watching geopolitics, you're watching a trade. Yeah, I mean, and you're also watching geopolitics. So, yeah, hey, we've had deeply corrupt administrations in American history. I don't think any of them can hold a candle to this crew. Like, this does happen every time Trump makes one of these announcements. There's unusual market activity right before that can only be insider trading. There's absolutely no other explanation for it. The poster there is right. No, nobody bets $1.5 billion because they kind of think a thing, right? I mean, that's you are definitely trading on inside information. More broadly, yeah, Trump does time these things to the market. where he amps up the rhetoric on Friday and cools it down on Monday. We saw that pattern with his whole Liberation Day tariffs, where he'd be talking up the tariffs going into the weekend. Then on Monday, oh yeah, we're about to make a deal, shoots the market back up. So yeah, there is an element of market manipulation, but what I'll get into in my next piece is there's also an element of what he's been doing all along with Iran. This time they're not biting. He pretends he wants to negotiate while he's setting up an attack. Even as he's saying this, he's moving in more Marines. They're talking about sending in 82nd Airborne. The Iranians have gotten wise to this. They've been attacked twice during supposed negotiations. They're not going for it this time.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's used to being able to bullshit his way out of everything, and this is something that you can't really bullshit your way out of. I do think there's an element of market manipulation there, even if you give them the ridiculous benefit of every doubt and suggest it's not, for personal gain for them or their friends, which I think is obviously an absurd benefit.
Yeah.
I think he's doing it to try and keep things politically within the lines, right? Not let oil prices jump too high. Of course, oil dropped below $100 a barrel upon news of that.
Very
right?
briefly,
Wants to give the stock market a kick, right? Because, he knows he's bitten off more than he can chew here. I think that's very, very obvious to him, as shallow and as incurious a person as he is and as insulated from good information as he is. I think he understands that he doesn't know what to do next, right? Even if he's getting junk numbers about 100% approval ratings and all this stuff, I still think he is very, very confused as to what the next step is going to be here because he's not in charge. He's not in charge. Benjamin Netanyahu is in charge. He gets information filtered through Susie Wiles, his chief of staff, who, don't forget, is a political operative for Netanyahu. She worked on Benjamin Netanyahu's campaign, right? So this is the sort of information bubble that he lives inside. That's not an excuse for Donald Trump. I just think it explains all of this.
Freaking his own son-in-law is an agent of Israel.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at who he has around him, it's not a surprise that he's insulated from good information, but that doesn't get in your head as a strategist in terms of, okay, what do we do next? I think he kind of understands he's just waiting for the next order to come in. And in the meantime, try and keep the shit as much to shoe level as you possibly can politically back home, which of course means economically as well. So I do think this was essentially market manipulation. Either way you look at it. I tweeted out. I said all we're saying is give market manipulation a chance.
Yeah, I saw that. That was funny. It's market manipulation, but it's also he's pulling the same move he pulled twice already, but they're not going for it the third time. Yeah, I'm negotiating. Get the Marines in there. Get the Marine. Yeah, we're negotiating. But
that's Israel.
Yeah,
I mean,
we saw this movie. This movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's Israel's MO.
Right.
They did that to the Qatari negotiators when they were trying to negotiate a ceasefire in Gaza. Israel hit them, and we said, "What do you know?" Right. That I mean, this is a very, very old and predictable playbook at this point, and at a certain point you just run out of moves, and it wasn't difficult to predict that would happen much sooner than later in this particular conflict here.
Yep.
All right. I'm assuming you load in a couple more videos down there.
Yep.
All right, Mark P. Thicko. I love when Russell reads Trump's tweets. Thank you, Mark P. Thicko. Appreciate that. EO Shush. Little does that lady know, next the embargo, and if that doesn't work, missile strikes. Yeah, on the Kentucky farmer. Yeah, this is a $5 donation to all the poor AI who are going to starve to death without the new data center. That's right. Thank you, username. Nocturnal Human. The only people who need artificial intelligence are the people who are naturally stupid. Nina Kant says, every time I hear economic growth crap, I say, that's not for us, is it? Yeah, not falling for that. Of course. Why would anybody think that has to do with them? If you're not in the capitalist class, the economic growth means nothing. It means they may pay you $0.25 more an hour starting next year. Maybe. Not even necessarily. Not E40 Thank you for the $4.99 on YouTube. It's cool that we might see $4 gas for at least a year. The last oil shock was because the GCC countries boycotting Israel and America. Yeah, that's what they're saying. They're saying at least till mid-2027, which likely means at least till mid-2028.
Oh, it's going to fuck the whole world, man.
Yeah, of course. Oh, George, has anyone ever seen Russ smile this long before? I haven't. Those vids were worth it. Thank you, oh, George. Appreciate that.
Which vids? What are you talking about?
Please talk. I'm not sure. But I think it was regarding the last segment. Must have been, right? Unless it was the Kentucky one. Please talk about the torture of the 2-year-old kid and the burning of the teen alive by yours truly, IDF. Palestinians are paying for the Zio's range. Yeah, I have not seen that story. I'll have to look at it. I'll search.
Well, you know, we missed what I sent you before. I don't know how we missed that. That the IDF attacked the CNN producer.
Yeah, you sent me that. That was in the West Bank, right?
Yeah, it was at the Al-Aqsa Mosque.
Oh, wow. Trump is very mentally unwell. Yikes. Yes, that's true. Nobody told Bibi Israel bombed the plants today. Thank you, Sean Hurl. Appreciate that. All right. You got some, move right on along.
Almost. I got one more to load in.
Gina and Heidi, Trump negotiating with Iranian President Juan Guaido. Good one. Thank you, Gina and Heidi. Appreciate that. Ravid Laz over here says, Trump, please read in his voice. Oh, here. I'll let, there we go.
Yes, one of the 15 points is that they must rename the strait. It's going to be a beautiful name, a fabulous name. The Strait of Trumpoos has a nice ring.
Has a nice ring to it. Yeah. Ran out of characters, but I saw the rest of it over there, Ravid Laz.
You know, now I'm going to surprise you, man. I'm not going to do it every time because then you're going to expect it.
What's that?
With the Trump voice.
Oh, with the voice.
With some tweets, yeah.
All right. There you go.
That's a lot to commit to because you have some pieces where we're doing like 5. I can't.
And they've been getting long lately.
They've been getting a little long. They've been getting a little long-winded. Yeah.
All right. Let's move right on
along. Okay. So this is the state of things here. Clash report. While Trump says he's holding talks with Iran, the U.S. is still deploying thousands of troops against Iran. USS Boxer, ARG plus 11th MEU, 2,500 Marines. USS Tripoli, ARG, 2,200 Marines. Total in region, 50,000 plus U.S. troops. 82nd Airborne Division, that's speculated right now. Training exercises canceled. Immediate response force on standby for rapid deployment. Can deploy within 18 hours. So this is 4 days ago, which is a lifetime these days. But still relevant. This was on Newsmax of all things. Breaking the news that the Pentagon is planning for boots on the ground.
Would take to secure the strait. There's now more and more reporting that maybe some type of ground offensive in the region by our Marines. And this is from CBS News today, so take it with a grain of salt. Mr. Trump has been deliberating whether to position ground forces in the region. Sources said on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. They also report that roughly 2,200 to 2,500 Marines from the California-based USS Boxer Amphibious Ready Group and the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit are heading to U.S. Central Command that is responsible for all American forces in the Middle East. Okay, so that looks like that is happening. But here was the president's response to that and the taking of Kharg Island, which is the island where most of Iran, their oil passes through. They need that economically to survive as a country.
Well, I may have a plan or I may not, but how would I ever say that to a reporter? If I said that to a reporter, Marker would say, please, sir, let's bring you over to the helicopter immediately, right? No, I can't tell you that.
Like I said, it's...
Well, seeming to reinforce this, New York Times just dropped this yesterday. Pentagon officials weigh deployment of airborne troops for Iran war. The combat forces would come from the 82nd Airborne's Immediate Response Force a brigade of about 3,000 soldiers capable of deploying anywhere in the world within 18 hours. These forces could be used to seize Kharg Island, Iran's main oil export hub. Another possibility being considered, should President Trump authorize U.S. troops to seize the island, is an attack by about 2,500 troops from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, which is on its way to the region. The airfield on Kharg Island was damaged by the recent U.S. bombing raids, so former U.S. commanders said it was more likely to first bring in Marines whose combat engineers could quickly repair airfields and other airport infrastructure. Once the airfield is repaired, the Air Force could start flowing material and supplies as well as troops, if necessary, by C-130s. In that scenario, it is possible that the troops from the 82nd Airborne would augment the Marines. The upside of going with paratroopers is they can arrive overnight. The downside is they do not bring any... The downside is they do not bring any heavy equipment, such as heavily armored vehicles that would offer protection if Iranian forces counterattacked, current and former officials said. The Marines lack the sustainment and staying power of the forces from the 82nd Airborne, which could be used to relieve the Marine forces after the initial attack on the island, current and former officials said. Now, I'm just going to say it's kind of subtle in this case, but this is how propaganda works. Do you see how the New York Times presented this as, yeah, no, there's no obstacle to them doing this. No problem, man. They're just going to go take the island. They're not going to be doing it under, heavy drone attacks, missile attacks, no mines in the waterway getting there. Nah, easy peasy. They literally, I read the whole article, they literally don't mention anything beyond what you hear there. Yeah, no, and so they'll relieve them and they'll take, no problem. As we'll see, it would be a pretty big problem. But, a good indication that this is going to happen, we know who Donald Trump listens to. If there's one person he listens to as much as Netanyahu, it's Miss Lindsay. And Miss Lindsay is all for it.
So I don't think it's going to be much longer.
No, we're not going to invade Iran. There's no reason to. We're going to destroy their ability to hurt us, have a nuclear weapon, build missiles to hit America, and terrorize the region. Kharg Island, 90% of their income comes from oil and gas revenue. 100% of that revenue generating capability is on a single island. Mr. President, take Kharg Island. This war is over.
And Jeff Sessions also thinks this is an awesome idea.
Marines to the region. Are you okay with putting those two troops on the ground?
I actually spoke to some media last night, I indicated that I believe that what these 2,500 Marines of the Marine Expeditionary Force would be to probably secure the island. The island is not, in my opinion, boots on the ground in combat circumstances.
It is a territory. It is Iran.
Facility.
Okay, yes. He's trying to argue that because it's not mainland Iran, it's not boots on the ground. And she calls him out on it.
Well, it's like the Florida Keys. As a matter of fact, you're right.
It's like the Florida Keys. It's not really America because it's not direct like Manhattan. We can all agree Manhattan's not America, right? Everybody
like Long
agrees
Island.
about that. Like Long Island.
It is a territory. It is Iran.
Facility. Well, I'm not going to argue that point. As a matter of fact, you're right. But what I would say is the president has chosen not to obliterate the ability that to get oil, and I think he wants to go secure that to make sure the Iranians don't do themselves in. So I think it's probably wisdom.
He's protecting the Iranians.
Boots on the ground? No, not like inside Iran where they're in the cities, to where we go through circumstances that we've had in the past of large areas of population, combatants against us, and it is a mess. I am against what I call the mess, moving people, Marines, snipers into population areas. But
does he know that there's actually a civilian population on Kharg Island of, I believe, about 8,000 people? Apparently not. Apparently not. Apparently, you don't need to know these things to represent the country in Congress. Okay, so Trump said there's at least 15 points that we agree with the Iranians on. Surprisingly, this is one of them. They would love for the American troops to come to Iran. Visibly shocking the anchor here with his response.
On the ground in Iran, are you afraid of a U.S. invasion in your country?
No, we are waiting for them.
You are waiting for the U.S. military to invade the ground troops?
Yes, because we are confident that we can confront them, and that would be a big disaster for them.
The anchor really does not know how to react to that at all. See, this is what happens when you're not making war on children with rocks, when you're making war on an actual country that's been planning for this for 20 years. No, they don't shit themselves when you say you're going to bring in your troops. They want you to turn this into your Vietnam. They want you to come in, bring troops into an unwinnable war and a meat grinder that they've spent 20 years constructing for you. And reinforcing the idea that this is going to happen. And I think the evidence, as soon as they said they were sending those ground troops into the area, I said the same thing I said when they were sending the material into the area. Of course, they're going to attack Iran. Like you don't move that much material unless you're going to do it. Now, moving men is less of a commitment, but I don't think they'd be moving more men and more men and more men unless they were planning on using them. So Evan Hill here. U.S. officials tell the Post they no longer believe it is possible to achieve the war's original goals of overthrowing the Iranian regime and putting its nuclear program permanently out of reach. So here's a little bit from the article. A surge of additional U.S. forces to the Middle East and President Donald Trump's threat to obliterate Iran's energy infrastructure have set the stage for what U.S. and Israeli security officials increasingly see as the war's possible endgame, a battle for control of the Strait of Hormuz and key energy installations. Reopening the strait, a critical conduit for global energy supplies, has emerged as perhaps the paramount objective of a war that security officials now believe is unlikely to achieve goals that briefly seemed possible at the outset of the U.S.-Israeli military operation, according to who? Including overthrowing Iran's theocratic regime and putting a nuclear weapon permanently out of Tehran's reach. Instead, breaking Iran's stranglehold on the strait could enable Trump to wind down the war while claiming victory, halt an expanding global energy crisis, and deprive Iran of a potent deterrent against future strikes, which senior Israeli officials described as inevitable if Tehran resumes ballistic missile production or moves to develop a nuclear weapon. You know, it's funny. The only people who have been striking their neighbors is Israel. No other country in that region has been striking their neighbors. It's only Israel. It's funny how you get, see, again, this is the propaganda. On the one hand, as Noam Chomsky in between trips on Epstein's jet pointed out, you do have to go to these sources because they have information that you just don't have. Like, do you personally have a news gathering service that can, but you really have to sift through the framing. The framing here is very much Iran is dangerous. And this would be a really good thing if we can permanently stop their ballistic missile technology because they'll inevitably strike. Israel is striking every place. They've attacked everybody. They've attacked. Do they have a neighbor that they haven't launched missiles at? Jesus. So here's Stu Peters. U.S. Marines are being sent on a suicide mission and funneled straight into a meat grinder. Here's why attempting to commandeer the Strait of Hormuz and storm the beaches of Iran will ultimately fail and lead to the slaughter of thousands of U.S. troops.
Flows through this 21-mile wide strip. Iran owns one side and has it locked down tight. Mobile anti-ship missiles hidden in the mountains, thousands of sea mines, swarms of explosive speedboats, diesel subs hugging the coast, Mach 3 ballistic missiles that can reach a carrier from 200 miles out. Iran has drilled closing the strait for decades. It's not hype, it's a ready-made kill zone. Send in an American carrier strike group to commandeer it. Confined waters, no room to maneuver. Iran saturates the sky with cheap ballistic missiles that maneuver at Mach 3. Swarm boats scream in at 50 knots. Mines shred propellers. Subs fire torpedoes at point blank. Pentagon war games are brutal. Ships sunk. Hundreds of sailors dead in 48 hours. The strait blocked with burning wrecks. Oil spikes to $300 a barrel, and the global economy implodes. Pure meat grinder. Jagged Zagros Mountains, vast central desert, narrow passes. Land invasion to secure it from inside? Iran is a fortress on steroids. The Zagros Wall, 900 miles of rock and ice, funnels attackers into kill zones. Then 500 miles of salt-flat desert that melts tank tracks. Every city sits in a mountain bowl. Terrain where a handful of defenders with RPGs and drones can stop a division cold. Bigger than Texas and California combined. 88 million people who will actually fight. Supply lines collapse instantly. Body bags stack faster than Vietnam. America talks tough. Reality doesn't care. Any strike group or invasion force walks straight into a meat grinder, built over decades by geography and firepower. The strait stays locked. The price in blood and dollars is never worth paying.
Okay, and that's a pretty good summation of what you're hearing from a lot of people. Harrison Mann here wrote an article for Responsible Statecraft where he gets into the details. Now, you might remember Harrison Mann. He was a very early conscientious objector to American support for the war in Gaza. He resigned from a top position in the Defense Intelligence Agency not long after it started in November 2023. Seizing Iran's crown jewel would be a suicide mission. He's a former Army major as well. Insertion options from least to most survivable are amphibious assault, heliborne, air assault, and airborne. Kharg is 500 miles beyond the Strait of Hormuz and just 15 miles off Iran's coast. Storming the beach would require making it past the maritime choke point, currently considered too dangerous for the U.S. Navy. With amphibious assault ships heading their way, Iranian forces could mine the strait and the waters around Kharg itself while attacking with shore-based anti-ship missiles, aerial drones, and drone boats. Any landing would also be in range of rockets and artillery that Iranian crews have not yet had the opportunity to employ in this war. A helicopter assault avoids anti-ship weapons, but any aircraft that touches down would be an easy target, missiles, and artillery, as well as shorter-range air defenses. The MEU's complement of V-22 Ospreys and helicopters would need at least 3 trips to insert its Marines, giving Iranian troops plenty of flights. An airborne jump would be the surest path, but still perilous. Planes are safe from drones, and fighter escorts could suppress or soak up surviving Iranian air defenses. Paratroopers land widely dispersed, preventing a single drone from taking out an entire platoon, but laden paratroopers blown off course, a common occurrence, could drown or land alone amidst an unfriendly population. It's unclear how many Iranian troops remain on the island. Trump claims he destroyed all military targets there, though that doesn't preclude underground bunkers or reinforcements arriving by boat. But that's really beside the point. What is certain is that 20,000 Iranian people live there, more than I thought, who are sure to consider U.S. troops an unwelcome presence, raising the odds. Oh, they're not going to greet them as liberators? I thought they told us everyone is trying to overthrow the government. Raising the odds of another horrific civilian casualty incident and compounding the challenges for the invasion force. Are the Marines now en route trained and manned for a counterinsurgency mission on top of everything else? Let's say U.S. troops clear the island and seize the oil facilities. Mission accomplished, right? Except that now they would be trapped in a 5-mile kill zone where evacuation would look like the worst scenes of Black Hawk Down or Dunkirk. Iran's leaders are fighting for the survival of the Islamic Republic, not to protect oil infrastructure. The opportunity to inflict a mass casualty event that could sap limited U.S. public support for the war or to hold entire battalions as de facto hostages may well appear more valuable to Tehran than oil revenue. Iranian commanders could even let U.S. troops land unopposed, stewarding the capabilities described above to instead repeal any rescue attempts and keep U.S. forces trapped on Kharg. If this analysis overestimates Iranian capabilities or underestimates U.S. air power, blame the example set by more modestly equipped and organized Houthis who have pushed U.S. Navy ships and fighters to their limits over the past 2 years. We should not assume Trump would be too casualty averse for an operation this big if he thought it promised victory. He so far appeared untroubled by troop deaths from this war, saying that's the way it is. Still, the White House should understand any attempt to seize the island is a recipe for mission creep. U.S. troops in distress on Kharg could be used to justify landing additional troops on the Iranian mainland to take out the Iranian forces obstructing evacuation. Then those troops need to be protected, resupplied, reinforced, and avenged too. And from there, the self-fulfilling logic of intervention pulls U.S. forces closer to Tehran. And a lot of people have pointed out that's very much what happened in Vietnam. But they were just supposed to establish a base at Da Nang. They got attacked. Oh, we can't let them get away with that. More and more troops, more and more troops. By the time you get to 1968, you have 500,000 U.S. troops there, what was supposed to be a very limited support mission of the Southern Vietnamese. A lot of analysts are making that comparison, that you send these Marines into Kharg Island, and it's probably going to be a slaughter. Well, now we've got to avenge our brave Marines, and now before you know it, you're in a quagmire. You're in a shooting war in a very inhospitable territory with a very dug-in enemy that has been preparing for this for 20 years. But all indications are that this is what they're going to try. If you look at Trump's pattern, and if you look at who's around him, and you look at what Miss Lindsay is signaling, and you look at what Pete Sessions there is saying, it's pretty damn clear that Trump's advisors have gotten in his ear. This is for all the marbles, sir. We take this out, we'll obliterate the Iranian threat forever. That's exactly the kind of narrative he likes. It's big, it's dramatic, it's Hollywood, it's crushing his enemies, it's turning the tables on him, it's Trump winning. It's exactly the kind of plan he would go for. And when you look at what they're telegraphing, right down to Trump claiming to be negotiating, all of this indicates they're moving these troops into the region to try to take that island. And based on what every reasonable, rational person, every not Lindsey Graham person who's commented on this, it's going to be a shooting gallery if they send the Marines to that island.
Well, yeah, it's a Bay of Pigs type situation. That's how they baited Kennedy, or at least tried to bait Kennedy into a ground war in Cuba. Yes, revenge is going to be a big motivation if these troops sent in and they get killed. And this is how you propagandize people into supporting a war. I think it's a lot darker than people are expecting. I think you send these troops in and they get attacked. Now there's going to be, look, I've we've all lived through the Iraq War propaganda and the post 9/11 sort of hysteria. But when you go through that, it is really not difficult to see how support for something can be manufactured. Yeah, support for intervention in Iran is very low now, but maybe I'm cynical or maybe I'm too black-pilled, but a real fear is that this happens. Obviously, God forbid, you have mass casualty events there, but it seems like it's a likelihood, if not a certainty, if they are so stupid as to try this. And then that gets used as justification to go in harder. And then once that starts, there's no telling where it stops. Once that starts, there's no telling where this goes. This goes to World War III very quickly at that point. It can become nuclear war very quickly at that point. Like there is no winning a war that gets that out of control that quickly in the nuclear age. You're talking about an apocalyptic, I won't be as dramatic as to say extinction level event, but a depopulation level event at that point. Right. So it's a suicidal move. It's an extraordinarily dangerous, reckless, and stupid move, but you have, people saying the same shit, that they said 22 years ago, 23 years ago. Oh, yeah, this is going to be easy. It'll take 6 days, 6 weeks, maybe 6 months. We'll be greeted as liberators. Oh, it's just the island. It's not the mainland. It's not a big deal. It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal because once there is a violent exchange on Kharg Island, if there is...
With troops.
Yes. At that point, things just spin very much out of control very, very quickly, making this all look like not even the opening cutscene to the movie. This will look like the company logo at the beginning of the movie. Everything we've seen so far, it'll be nothing compared to what can happen if they go through with this. And so, yes, it's obviously a very, very dangerous time, an extremely dangerous time. And it's a terrifying thought to think that they are stupid enough to think that the world can get away with this. Don't forget, we're being led into this by lunatics. This is not in Israel's rational interest at this point either. They are apocalyptic lunatics. Don't forget, as you mentioned, they are, many of them, meaning the Israelis, are under the impression that, this is a road to some sort of biblical salvation.
The
right?
Messiah hasn't come yet.
Yeah, right.
You got to make things really bad to get Messiah.
Right. Exactly. So that's what you're dealing with here, and that's the hand that's leading Donald Trump around, whether he knows it or not. I'm sure Susie Wiles is pretty good at explaining things to him like he's an 8-year-old because he thinks like an 8-year-old. But it's much, much, much more serious than that.
One side note here, obviously, this is a perspective I have, having been in Southeast Asia as all of this has developed. You got all these countries like Laos, or Lao, I should say, is actually the proper way to say it, Vietnam, and now Cambodia, where these countries have been deeply victimized by the U.S. in particular and the West in general. And part of how they have rebuilt their societies and boosted their economies is tourism, by opening themselves up to tourism. And I was just talking to the same guy I mentioned earlier that I was talking to at the restaurant. He says business is way down because people can't afford plane tickets. He said over the last 3 weeks, my business is down. And he said his cost for cooking gas more than doubled. These poor people, man, like they're lifting themselves up. They're figuring things out. They're figuring out how to make their economy thrive. And have their people be prosperous. And now this, like, even if this ended tomorrow, they're saying that these prices would be elevated into 2027. And you're talking about, for a lot of these people, they're just kind of getting out of poverty. They're just getting out of poverty, and now you're going to knock them right back down.
Yeah. No, it's a horrible, horrible thing. Just an absolute horror show. It's the worst decision any president's ever made in our lifetimes, getting involved in this. Doing this is the worst decision any president's made in any of our lifetimes, because of just how quickly you're seeing how out of control it can get. And you got a guy here who clearly has no clue. Clearly no clue. He is clearly just taking orders from people surrounding him. And he's going out, he's giving you the typical bullshit that he always uses to try and, wiggle out of things. And he is so clearly in so far over his head. I mean, it is a very, very scary thing. Very scary thing.
He'll always have Eric Doherty.
He'll always have Eric Doherty. That's right. All right, you want to take some super chats and some Rumble rants? They're lined up there.
All right.
Do you want to just do your last piece now while the signal's good, and then I'll just do the second half of the show?
Do you think so?
It's up to you. I mean, we may as well keep going while the signal's good.
But I got to load all that.
All right. So if you're going to do that, I mean, do you want to? If you'll do that, then I'll just do the chats now. I think that's probably.
What do you? Yeah.
I mean, I could do. It doesn't matter. We can let it ride. All right. So here, take some chats. Take some chats.
Topher, the only thing that heals faster than Erica Kirk's heart is Donald Trump's.
Oh no, that's an old one. What happened?
Well, that's the
I think
one
yours are old. So yours didn't delete properly then, because I've been deleting them. Yeah.
Well, where does it start from?
I have no idea. So here, I'll take them, and you'll follow along. Trump is getting Iran's friend to ask Iran if she can spread her sweet legs open and spread that strain of Hormuz. Thank you for that. Blue MAGA. Thanks for the $50. Let's have a prayer bell for Blue MAGA. Appreciate that. Who are you talking to, Mr. President? Trump. He's a top guy. Yeah, we asked for the password, and he just said open sesame. So, yeah, we're pretty sure it's him. Yeah, exactly. EO Shush, why are we sending our troops into Iran? Can't the IDF take a little time off torturing babies and double tap strikes on hospitals to fight a ground war against Iran? Yeah, they should have to go and take Kharg Island if they want it. Okay, Eric Rousseau. It's MMT, market manipulation for Trump. There you go.
All right, I got it now.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, George, the Iran presentation for Trump. Yeah, that really look up they thought it was a Hollywood movie thing. That's hilarious. Matt from Wisconsin. I like to picture a makeshift lights and sound booth not more than 2 feet behind Keaton's camera, and that's where Jake sits. Yeah, it's like the old Vanguard thing where they were in the same house but doing it in 2 different rooms. Francis, the Iran war is going so badly for Trump, he might have to release all the Epstein files to distract us. Yes, did I see that on X? Did you put that on X? Virtuoso, Russ, I see you with the Iron Maiden shirt. 2 minutes to midnight is apropos for the state of the geopolitical landscape in the Middle East. Might as well throw the doomsday clock. Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. Satanica, love from Bahrain, most worried about diesel plants being targeted after they're inevitably attacked in Iran, but at least interceptors are down. Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are down, it seems. Raven Laz, if I were the Iranian government, one of my additional demands would be the removal of Trump, regime change. How could they reliably negotiate with someone who lies as easily as he breathes? Yeah, see, there are certain things you don't do, like back in the day, you just wouldn't attack under a flag of truce, right? Because then you can never use a flag of truce again. This is what they did. They kept attacking during negotiations. That's something you don't do. Because what if you want to negotiate later?
Right.
No one's going to be willing to negotiate with you.
Right.
Alaska calls. The airborne units are dated. They are like shooting ducks. The 82nd has a ton of clout with their deep deploy anywhere in 18 hours. But what are they going to do once they get there? No supply, no ammo. So stupid. Yep. That's what everyone who's not working for Donald Trump says. E.F. Husseau. It's like the movie Red Dawn. That wasn't boots on the ground because it was in the hick part of America. See, if we still did, I promise you, if we were still doing Hollywood movies, I absolutely would have gotten around to Red Dawn. Angry Pole, DD. Sometimes you mention reformist and or Trotskyist individuals and frame them in a revolutionary light when they are anything but. For example, once in a while you mention Jeremy Corbyn, who is an opportunist. I mean,
let me ask you something. Are you sending Are you sending that Rumble rant from a blacked out Cuba now? Mister, he's an opportunist. I mean, are you? If you are, then you can call him an opportunist, and that's fine. Then I'll take that. You know, then that's a great point.
Listen,
then again, if you were there, you could tell that to him to his face that he's an opportunist. But my guess is that you are sitting in a heated or air conditioned room, typing this from the comfort of an office or a couch somewhere. What an opportunist he is. So, you know, not everybody is perfect, and not everybody's going to be the ideal of what you want them to be. But, you know, he got on the plane. He's there, you know.
Yeah. I think Monty Python illustrated this whole problem with leftists 50 years ago in Life of Brian, right? We're not the People's Front of Judea. We're the Judean People's Front. Splitters, right? Like, dude, it's so fucking retarded. It just is. I'm sorry. Like, that whole conversation, to have less interest in that conversation, I'd have to be dead. I would literally have to be dead to be less interested in that conversation.
Yeah.
Like, look, you can have your disagreements with people, but as Keaton points out, that motherfucker's in Cuba. Where are you? Right. Where are you? You in Cuba?
Yeah,
where are you?
Cuba?
Where are you?
Yeah.
There are a lot of places you could be right now where you could be doing more good than you're doing chatting that to us. We're not getting into this internecine battle between different wings of the left. It's just it's absolutely unproductive. You want to talk about people with hidden motives? Who do you think drives a lot of that? Who do you think drives a lot of that? Because you know, the late great Michael Parenti talked quite a lot about the psyops that the intelligence agencies run on the left, right? Caleb Maupin kind of picked up that torch. He writes a lot about that. So a lot of that, you're feeding that. You're helping the CIA when you write things like that about somebody who's in Cuba right now. You can disagree with him. I'm not saying the guy's a saint. You have to agree with everything, but it's not productive, man. Angry Prole. I worry that such individuals, organizations who are friendly with the bourgeoisie behind the scenes are going to be used once again to funnel people back into supporting the same corrupt bourgeoisie structure. Listen, man, I just came from a country where people, while they were being tortured in a prison by the French, were so dedicated to their communist cause that when they were forced to all share the same shit bucket as a punishment, they turned it into a way to hide their communist literature, and they would pull that out of the shit to have their communist meetings. When you're prepared to do something that heinous for the revolution, get back to me about who's too connected to the bourgeoisie. Because to those people, you know what you are? The fucking bourgeoisie.
Yeah. We're on YouTube now. I mean, this is talking about a bourgeois structure.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're on YouTube.
They didn't have no YouTube in the ship bucket. I'll tell you that. Yeah. Angry Pro, with the rising cost of oil and all products that use it, do you think this will inspire renewed interest to invest in the creation of alternatives for technologies and products that use oil? Well, yeah, I mean, that's already happening. Cuba, before this even happened, because of our sanctions, was one of the most rapidly, if not the most rapidly converting countries in the world, and China is helping them. China's been bringing them a lot of solar power. They've been very quickly moving over to solar. China obviously is building a lot of different renewable energy resources. This is something that's not talked about a lot. A lot of people talk about the ways that the imperial decline of the American empire parallels other imperial declines. They don't talk about the pattern of energy mastery. There is a historical pattern of empires being built on early adoption of the next energy source. So the Dutch mastered wind power ahead of anybody else. And for a while, they had a maritime empire as a result. The British mastered coal before anybody else. But what winds up happening is when your power was built on that resource, you're the last to give it up. And the world moves on around you with the next innovation. So we picked up on oil rather, and surpassed the British Empire. We adopted that early, and we wound up being much more powerful than England, partly because we adopted that power source. You're seeing China adopting the next energy while we are desperately clinging to the energy source that was the base of our empire. We don't want to let it go. The rest of the world is just going to move on around us. So yes, the answer is yes. Meteor blocks gaming. It's all misdirection. Robots and AI will be used. Well, there's that too. That's why I say, man, you might not want a revolution, but you're gonna want one later. Probably be too late by then. They'll have the digital prison all built out at that point. Nocturnal Human. I remember Kharg Island was a map in the video game Battlefield 3. I saw somebody mention that. I guess the propaganda was in place for this for a long time. Yeah, I saw somebody mention that on X. Whoops.
Yeah, just take that last one and then I'll
go
into.
Everything's a scam, everything's a lie, everything's hypocrisy, and so you don't comply. On that, we agree, my friend. All right, go ahead.
All right. Let's take a look at Joe Kent and Mark Levin. So remember when Mark Levin challenged Joe Kent to be on his radio show, and then Joe Kent said, sure, let's set it up, and then Levin clapped back a few hours later, I haven't heard from your people. Where'd you go? Well, they finally put it together. Joe Kent destroys Mark Levin and forces him to go to a commercial break after saying President Trump was fed false intelligence about him. This is pretty crazy. So Joe Kent starts telling too much truth and speaking apparently too fast for Mark Levin's ears, even though he's a radio host for, 30 years now? It's like, I'm having trouble hearing. You're speaking too fast. Can you slow down? So then he slows down, and then seconds after he slows down, the music comes up and Levin goes to a commercial before changing the subject. Pretty amazing.
I think the president said he never really remembers you that well. He never really met with you that often. Is that correct?
Well, the president meets with so many different people. I mean, he knew who I was, but by no means was I a primary advisor to him on a daily basis. However, in terms of determining the threat level that Iran posed to our country, I was a key part of that process. So that was very much in my purview.
And he rejected your view?
I don't think he rejected the view. I think he may have chosen to go a different direction, and I think the vast majority of intelligence and information that he received was given to him to paint a picture that Iran was on the cusp of developing a nuclear weapon, which just simply was not the truth. And also, as Secretary Rubio said, there was no imminent threat coming from Iran against the Americans.
Well, he corrected that.
There was an imminent threat coming from the Israelis who were going to attack. But that's actually the truth.
Okay, hold on. We're going to do it. We're going to do it honestly, one point at a time.
Had observed the Iranians observed.
He was doing it honestly. What?
Yeah.
It was just It was old information. It's kind of rehashing it just to kind of bring your audience up to speed, because maybe your audience is only vaguely familiar with that since they get their news from, you.
Hold on. We're going to do it. We're going to do it honestly.
Whoa. Slow down.
Had observed, the Iranians had observed an escalation ladder. They hadn't attacked us under President Trump.
Can you do me a favor? I don't mean to be rude. Can you talk a little more slowly? I'm having trouble hearing. Take your time. Go ahead.
You can't hear.
Sure. When President Trump came into office, the Iranians knew that President Trump wanted to get a deal. They observed the escalatory ladder very carefully. They stopped having our proxies attack us like they were attacking us under the Biden administration.
There's the music.
And they got to the negotiating table with us about the nuclear agenda. When the 12-day war kicked off and the Israelis started that, the Iranians still didn't attack us.
All right. We have to take a break. I'm going to circle back on some of your comments here, and then I have some other questions. I appreciate you being here. We'll be right back with Joe Kent.
Okay, now, spoiler alert, as I'm going to demonstrate, he doesn't circle back on those comments. He changes the subject to talk about Charlie Kirk. Right. So he says, hold on. Wait, whoa. Slow down. You're talking too fast. And then, we have to take a commercial.
Wanted to get a deal. They observed the escalatory ladder very carefully. They stopped having our proxies attack us like they were attacking us under the Biden administration.
They stopped having their proxies attack us like they were attacking us under the Biden administration. And then the music.
And they got to the negotiating table with us about the nuclear agenda. When the 12-day war kicked off and the Israelis started that, the Iranians still didn't attack us.
All
right. We have to go to a break. Okay, so he says they weren't having their proxies attack us like they were under Biden. Remember that phrase. It's very important as a point of reference because I'm going to show you something else that Mark Levin did. So he tweets out, "You POS are hilarious. In radio, we've hard breaks. I had to go to the break. That's simple." It probably is true that he had to go to the break, and that's why he cut him off and told him to slow down so that he wouldn't get as much of that out before he had to go to the break. But now we're going to see the version. Well, first, I thought this was funny. We noticed no hard breaks during your 20-minute rant. So, yeah, Mark Levin posted the podcast version of this interview to his Rumble channel. It's a 35-minute video. The first 14 minutes, it's not quite 20, but the first 14 minutes is basically him monologuing about what an asshole Joe Kent is, and then he brings him in 14 minutes into the video. So I guess the interview only lasted a little over 20 minutes. So he posts a link to the full episode. Here's my full interview with Joe Kent tonight. So this was posted to his Rumble channel, which is a pretty big channel, 641,000 subscribers. So now we're going to replay that exact moment where he cuts Joe Kent off. Except you're going to notice something kind of awkward here.
Escalation ladder. They hadn't attacked us under President Trump.
Can you do me a favor? And I don't mean to be rude. Can you talk a little more slowly? I'm having trouble hearing.
So he slows him down. We just heard that.
Sure. When President Trump came into office, the Iranians knew that President Trump wanted to get a deal. They observed the escalatory ladder very carefully. They stopped having our proxies attack us like they were attacking us under the Biden administration.
I want to read you something, Joe, for you to respond to here.
Then it cuts to after the commercial. So you don't get to hear Levin cut him off in the full video of the interview. You don't hear that part. They edit around that because the music came in and they went to break. So if you're watching the full replay of this, full quote unquote, you wouldn't know that he cut the guy off mid-thought and then changed the subject. The way it's edited, you would never know that. He goes like this.
Attack us like they were attacking us under the Biden administration.
I want to read you something, Joe, for you to respond to here.
And now it cuts to right after the break, look what he gets into right after the break. Does he go back and rehash those points, or does he change the subject? Let's see.
When one of President Trump's closest advisors, who's vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis, and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about it. It's a data point, you told Carlson.
See? So now he's talking about Charlie Kirk. Yeah, so he never gave him a chance to finish what is arguably the most important monologue he was on. He cuts him off, goes to commercial, says we're going to rehash this when we come back, doesn't, changes the subject, edits that part out of his podcast version of the episode so that people who are listening on the replay would never know that he cut the guy off.
Right.
I mean, talk about a sleaze. Like, talk about unethical, right? Not only do you cut the guy off, you hide the fact that you cut the guy off because most people don't listen on terrestrial radio. Most people catch up on the podcast. That's what they do now in the internet age. Yeah. Wow. Wow.
A lot of people, when they were having the back and forth, a lot of people were jumping in that thread telling Kent not to do it. Because Levin is dishonest. He's a scumbag. He's going to twist it. You can't trust him as an interviewer. And there you go.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And it's a good thing that somebody caught the live radio version because they were able to catch the music coming in. Because if you were just going off the podcast version, you would never know. You would never know that he cut the guy off. You would think he let him finish his thought. The way it sounds on that podcast is that he finished the thought and they moved on. But that is not what happened. That is not what happened. That's pretty amazing. All right. So later on in the interview, they talk a little bit more about Israel's supposed influence on American policy here.
We knew that after Midnight Hammer, it was evident that the Israelis still wanted regime change in Iran, and they were going to continue to push.
How did the Israelis get all this power over President Trump? He says to you.
You tell me, motherfucker. You're the one who called Donald Trump the first Jewish president. Remember that? We covered that. So I don't know. You could explain that probably better than we can.
That's not right.
We knew that after Midnight Hammer, it was evident that the Israelis still wanted regime change in Iran, and they were going to continue to push.
How did the Israelis get all this power over President Trump? He says to you, that's not right. Radcliffe says, that's not right. Hegseth says, that's not right.
Oh, you mean the people in the government who still have their jobs and are lying about the war? They said that what you said isn't right. Wow, that's an own. That's an own. Think about how addled you have to be.
The people owned by Israel say they're not owned by Israel.
Yeah, they say they're not owned. They say that's not true.
Newsflash.
Yeah. Pete Hegseth says that's not true, as if that's an own. I mean, think about the kind of person that listens to this unironically. You know, I mean, it is scary shit. This is why
That's
I told you in the last
amazing.
segment, it's terrifying. It's terrifying. The idea of a Kharg Island type operation resulting in an explosion of violence that then justifies World War III for real. Not like what we've been taught, like for real. Like not the prologue to it, but an actual global
the
war.
real World War III.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what the vice president.
The kind that ends with us living in fallout.
Yes, exactly.
Like the game.
Yes, of course.
It's not right.
So
I don't know what the vice president said to you, but why do you keep insisting on it when they keep insisting it's not true?
Because in real time over the course of the last year, we watched the Israelis through their official engagements with members of our government and the media echo chamber, which I believe you were a part of, move President Trump's red line from saying that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon to saying Iran can't have any enrichment, because President Trump and the former supreme leader of Iran agreed that Iran was not going to get a nuclear weapon. They were going to get
and you believed them.
Table.
You believe
so I believe that 18 members of the intelligence
Well,
community.
apparently it wasn't 18 because the CIA director said you're wrong.
Oh, wow.
Well, the coordinated assessment that the CIA sent to the ODNI said that they were not working towards getting a nuclear bomb because the supreme leader had a prohibition on the development of nuclear weapons.
So you believed his fatwa. I mean, this is kind of foolish. So they put out a fatwa. The guy just lied about the distance. Hold on now. Hold on. The guy lied about the distance of their ballistic missiles in February. His foreign minister did.
Then why didn't Iran have a nuclear weapon? They've been trying. If they've been trying.
Then why didn't Iran have what?
2004. Why didn't they have a nuclear weapon? If Iran wanted,
why do you think they didn't have a nuclear weapon? Because we and the Israelis and perhaps other countries stopped them with cyber warfare and other things. I'm not even understanding your argument. Let's try it this way. Let's go back to basics.
No, we had.
This is why they told him not to go. The people telling him not to go, because these radio guys are brutal. They're very fast paced. They're used to working under time constraints with breaks coming up. They know how to stonewall.
No intelligence that said that Iran was working to develop a nuclear weapon. That information came from the Israelis, and then
it came from Witkoff, who directly said we were negotiating with the Iranians. That they told us.
Right. They were.
Hold on now. Hold on. I need the public to understand this.
Oh, yeah. All
right, you go first, then I'll go.
President Trump said no nuclear weapons. And then through official engagements through the Israelis and then also the media echo chamber that wanted regime change in Iran said, no, we need to say that the Iranians can't.
What about the media echo chamber, your buddies who didn't want regime change in Iran?
Oh, that media echo chamber. You mean like podcasts like this one like Tucker Carlson, that media echo chamber pulls a lot of weight at the White House. Real lot of weight. Yeah, this echo chamber. What about your echo chamber? You're the one, clearly, who Donald Trump threw in with. So I would say it's your echo chamber that people are more concerned about. Now watch what happens here.
What about the media echo chamber, your buddies who didn't want regime change in Iran?
So you see that flash on the screen? That flash on the screen, I edited that flash on the screen to signify that we're skipping over something and going later in the interview. See, that's what you do if you're ethical, so you don't misrepresent the interview to the audience. Unlike what Mark Levin did, which is just cut out the part where he cuts the guy off in the middle of his point and then acts like it never happened. So that little flash is my way of signaling, okay, this comes a few minutes later. So let's take a look at a few minutes later, because this is another astounding piece of commentary by Mark Levin.
Chamber, your buddies who didn't want regime change in Iran. When you put that letter out, you knew it would do maximum damage to the president, didn't you? The timing, for instance.
You mean the resignation letter?
If you were going to resign because you didn't agree with this war, why didn't you resign when the war started?
He did. The war just started. What are you talking about?
What was this, 3 years in?
Yeah, it's 3 years in. So what, a week? A week in? He did resign when it first happened. Well, he's supposed to be, what? You expect him to resign as quickly as he gets back to your email? You say, where are you? You disappeared. Wow, this guy got to be on time for Mark Levin.
Because I was hoping that we would immediately de-escalate and try and get back to the negotiating table.
We would start a war and de-escalate in 3 days?
Well, we started a war and de-escalated in 12 days the first time, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he was holding out hope that maybe Trump would listen to reason and pull back. And when it became clear he wasn't going to do that, that's when he resigned. Seems like a pretty normal timeline to me.
I was hoping that we were going to do limited strikes, and then limited strikes like we did in Midnight Hammer, and then back off and go back to the negotiating table. Once I realized that was not going to happen, and we were spiraling deeper into this, and we were starting to lose brave men and women in yet another Middle Eastern war driven by the Israeli agenda, that's what led me to resign.
You got a real hate on.
To make it public.
You got a real hate on, brother.
You got a real hate on, brother. Amazing. And he still won't let him finish his point. Notice, he still won't let the guy talk. He has the guy on for 20 minutes. He monologues for 15 minutes before he brings the guy on about what an asshole he is. And now he rushes him through the interview, cutting him off. He does not let him complete a point. This is a guy, by the way, who he's accusing of being a leaker and disloyal to America. Will not let him explain himself.
No, you do. Hold on, Joe. When I had you on my show, I read your texts. I read them out loud. And you've done a 180. Why is that? Because you had access to intelligence or something? Why have you changed completely?
I have not done a 180. I have no problem with us working with Israel. I have a problem with Israel driving our foreign policy in the Middle East as they have done to get us into this war.
Do you have no respect for Donald Trump's agency, that he has the capacity to make these decisions himself?
No, I don't have. I mean, that's what he should say. Obviously not. Obviously, we have no respect for his agency. Obviously, he's not capable of making these decisions himself. I mean, it's very obvious. It's just amazing. Are you saying you don't respect Donald Trump as someone who's capable of figuring out the geopolitics of this? Is that what you're saying? Wow.
I have the utmost respect for the president. You can read my letter.
You didn't answer my question. You don't sound like it.
Yes, he did answer your
question.
I
believe that he was influenced by the media echo chamber and by the Israelis.
Well, maybe he's influenced by your media echo chamber. Or maybe he's influenced by the Saudis and the Qatar. Who knows? He made a decision. Can't you accept the fact that he's a great president, that he took in all this information, he listened to all his advisors, and he made a decision?
He does accept the fact that he made a decision, and it was a decision he's not comfortable with, so he resigned. What is your point? It's so dumb. It's so stupid.
All his advisors, and he made a decision? You may disagree with it, but why do you create a conspiratorial notion that Israel, 9.5 million people, a tiny economy and everything, dragged powerful Donald Trump of the United States into...
Oh, yeah, no, it's a conspiratorial notion. Conspiratorial notion. The guy's on camera for the last 40 years begging for this war. It's a big conspiracy theory that Israel took us into it.
Conspiratorial notion that Israel, 9.5 million people, a tiny economy and everything,
this is the
dragged powerful Donald Trump of the United States into war. Not one... You even had them dragging us into the Iraq war when on the record they said they didn't want to do the Iraq war. They opposed us doing it.
Okay. That is, of course, not true that Israel opposed the Iraq war. It's just one of many documented articles here. Israel puts pressure on U.S. to strike Iraq. This was the oldest one I could find. This was from August of 2002. So this was really before the war drums started beating in the United States, because I remember it started to look like we were going into Iraq in about October of 2002. But here's a headline from August of that year. Israel signaled its decision yesterday to put public pressure on President George Bush to go ahead with a military attack on Iraq, even though it believes Saddam Hussein may well retaliate by striking Israel. With foreign policy experts in Washington becoming increasingly critical of the wisdom of a military strike and European governments showing no willingness to support an attack, the Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon wants to make it clear he is the U.S. president's most reliable ally. Any postponement of an attack on Iraq at this stage, once again, August 2002, will serve no purpose. Renan Ghassin, a senior Sharon advisor, told the Associated Press yesterday, it will only give Saddam Hussein more of an opportunity to accelerate his program of weapons of mass destruction. Now, there were a faction of Israelis who were against the Iraq war. And do you know why they were against the Iraq war? Because they thought Iraq was the small fish. You know who they wanted to attack then and there? Iran. So the Israelis who were against going into Iraq weren't against it because they thought George Bush was a war criminal about to attack a country that did not attack the United States. They thought Iraq was a waste of resources because they wanted to go right at Iran. Israeli officials warned the George W. Bush administration that an invasion of Iraq would be destabilizing to the region and urged the United States to instead target Iran as the primary enemy, according to former administration official Lawrence Wilkerson, who now makes the rounds on these shows. We had the pleasure of meeting Lawrence at one of Jose's rallies in 2024. Wilkerson says, the end of the article, skipping ahead a little bit, the Israelis were telling us Iraq is not the enemy, Iran is the enemy. Or in the words of Mark Levin, no, Israel was all against the Iraq war. They didn't drag us into that, just like they didn't drag us into this one. Just complete illiteracy and stupidity. And for a guy who challenges Joe Kent to come on the show to basically make the case that he's not the traitor, which is essentially what Mark Levin is calling him, not in a legal sense, but in a social sense, if you will. Pretty extraordinary. Pretty extraordinary that he would handle the interview like that. All right. Well, I guess that segment, that's what we call a clean break. So I guess I'll just clip that right there. Any take from Russell Dovular? No? All right. Moving on. Thanks, Russell. All right. We got a little bit more of this. I'll wait for Russell to sign back in. Why do you hate our troops? Ha ha. EO shush. If you can't get behind our troops, get in front of them. Some in the chat thought I was serious, but that was Iraq war propaganda. I got it. I know you were joking. I know you're joking, and I saw in advance a couple chats. Go ahead. Yeah, no, it's gonna be a real nightmare, like a real no joke fucking nightmare if they go through with that. And I don't know if Donald Trump sees that coming 3-4 steps ahead, or if he is just in the dark. And once again, we have not made excuses for Donald Trump on this show for the past couple of years here. We've been very, very clear-eyed about him. So this idea that to say he's being led around by Israel is to make excuses for him, I've just always rejected that. And that seems to be this mini kind of debate that's happening online. There seems to be some people who are very obsessed with calling out people who are minimizing the agency of Donald Trump. To me, minimizing the agency of Donald Trump is a very strong criticism of Donald Trump. To me, that is about as strong a criticism as you can level against a world leader, which is that they are essentially a puppet, right? I mean, that's the worst thing you can call somebody, is a puppet of a foreign government. And that's what the liberals called Donald Trump for many, many years. Turns out they were right. They just had the wrong country. Anything to say about Mark Levin?
Yeah. I'm kind of stunned that he has those kinds of numbers. So let me ask, because you follow these things more closely than I do. I'm assuming pre-October 7th, he was mostly just, a rabid, racist, conservative, anti-woke kind of thing. That this wasn't so much what his brand was built on. Because I can't imagine somebody like this building that kind of following on this basis.
No, it's pretty amazing that he has had as successful a career as he has, because he has no charisma, he has no sense of humor, very little broadcast talent. Like, there are people out there with bad politics, in our opinions, who are very talented. I mean, Bill O'Reilly is a talented broadcaster.
Sure.
Michael Savage is extraordinarily talented
Hilarious.
broadcaster.
One of the
best in
best
the business. He hates
Best
Mark
in the
Levin.
biz.
Savage, that's the thing about radio. They're very competitive. They're all competing for viewers, for listeners, so they all hate each other. And Levin and Savage famously just despise each other. Savage had the greatest line about Levin's voice. He said, what did he say? He says, "You don't like what I have to say?" He says, "Turn me off and go listen to the guy who sounds like Groucho Marx's grandmother getting a hysterectomy without anesthesia." That's what he said. That's what he said about Mark Levin. Great line. Great line. No, I used to pay attention to these talk radio guys a lot because when we first started the show, it was an audio show. And so a lot of my influences, even though I loved watching YouTube content and stuff, but I would drive for a living. And so I would spend a lot of time just listening to the radio. And essentially, when we start an audio podcast, it's basically like pre-recorded talk radio. It's basically what it was. So I used to listen to talk radio a lot. I even listened to Levin a lot because I would just search the dials and see what was happening. I've never once heard this fucking guy say he couldn't hear somebody. What do you mean you can't hear the guy? You're a radio host.
Oh, no, of course.
This is what you do for a living, listen to people talk. Oh, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. You're talking too fast. What are you, nuts? Of course you were stalling for time because you knew the break was coming up. He's not lying when he said he has a hard break. You have hard breaks in radio. That's true. He was clearly stalling to get to the break.
That's
what he was doing there. Yeah,
so he could change the subject without it being too
exactly.
obvious.
Exactly.
No, I can't imagine somebody listening to that by choice.
Yeah.
With no coercion, threat of violence. Why would you listen? Who listens to that?
Yeah, no, it is absolutely abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. All right, but he wasn't done. We have more. Okay, so Joe Kent talked about Charlie Kirk in the Tucker Carlson interview. We covered that when we covered his resignation, and basically said that the intelligence community was not allowed to follow up on potential leads regarding, foreign involvement, shall we say, in the murder of Charlie Kirk. And so after promising that he was going to let him finish his point about how Israel dragged us into war, Mark Levin, after the commercial break, changed the subject and tried to nail him down on his comments regarding Charlie Kirk. So let's take a listen.
Jewish groups and others said you were really focusing on Israel, and you're telling me, no, not at all. It could be any foreign country, correct?
In my statement, my letter of resignation, I say that the Israelis forced President Trump into this war.
No, I'm talking about this that you said on Carlson's show, when a president close to his advisors who's vocally advocating for us not to go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis, and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated. We're not allowed to ask questions about that. It's a data point. What's the data point?
The data point is that the investigation, in my view, especially the foreign ties, has not been complete. And that.
Well, why did you bring up the Israelis there? Are you talking about what are you talking about there? Botswana? I mean, what are you thinking about when you say that?
Yeah, no, it's just as likely that he was killed by operatives from Botswana as he was by Israelis, because he didn't have a falling out with Israelis shortly before he was killed. Not to put words in the guy's mouth, I'm not sure Charlie Kirk was a great ally of Botswana. It doesn't sound like it. You seem like more the kind of guy who preferred, Norway and Finland to Botswana. But things were not so hostile that Botswana is a reasonable suspect in this case. Remember the text messages where he said, I'm afraid they're going to kill me after the meeting with Bill Ackman and them in the summer of last year. Yeah, that makes Israel, I think, a hotter lead than Botswana.
There have been some new photos that appeared of Erica Kirk with a Botswanese boyfriend
exactly.
in her early years. So that it's possible.
Possible, but not likely.
We're just curious. Just asking questions.
That Charlie was advocating for us not to go to war with Iran and to rethink our relationship with the Israelis, and then he was killed. This needs to be looked into.
Right. He wasn't saying we need to reevaluate our relationship with Botswana. He was saying we need to reevaluate our relationship with the Israelis.
That's all I can say.
That's all you can say. Rich, can you play what Charlie said after the president ordered the dropping of the bombs on in June on those sites in Iran? Go ahead.
And you might say, Charlie, do you support or oppose this? I support President Trump. That's my answer. I know the man. He's the commander-in-chief. He's the man for the hour, and he's had the weight of the world on his shoulders. So in a situation like this, I support my friend, and he's had my back, and I have his. That's my perspective. By the way, I also look at this and I say, and I understand the arguments of people that, don't intervene and all that. I get it. But boy, have we not exhausted so many diplomatic channels and options.
What do you think of that?
I didn't resign after Midnight Hammer. Midnight Hammer was a targeted operation that did not result in a further continuation of the war.
I'm not talking about why you resigned. I'm talking about, hold on.
He's answering you. I mean, it's a very, very strange question to ask to Joe Kent, who kept his job through Midnight Hammer because it didn't balloon into war. And now you're asking, well, how do you explain this? As we'll see. I mean, it's very well documented. Charlie Kirk was very nervous about a regime change war in Iran.
Talking about that was Charlie's comment about the president ordering the bombing of those nuclear sites in Iran. Right?
Right.
And you were talking about Charlie being assassinated, right?
Right, he was against the regime change war that's taking place right now.
Okay, hold on. I'm not talking about
Midnight Hammer and the bombing was two completely different things. Targeted operations are completely different.
You were talking about the assassination,
as we've seen with the ramifications.
One of President's closest advisors, who's vocally advocating for us not to go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis, and then he's suddenly publicly assassinated. President Trump wasn't talking about hitting Iran again in September. I'm talking about June.
Yeah, I think everybody saw this coming. I saw it coming. As soon as the 12-day war ended, I said, don't breathe any sigh of relief. Israel's going to be agitating for another Iran war by the end of the year. A prediction that came true literally right on time. Netanyahu visits the White House on December 30th to lobby for this Iran war. It was pretty obvious to everybody. Now, as for Charlie Kirk's comment there, we'll get into this a little bit. Here he is, June 17th, during the 12-day war. This is insane. Regime change will result in a bloody civil war, killing hundreds of thousands and creating another massive Muslim refugee crisis. Toppling a leader is never as easy as you think. It's almost always results in further involvement, a civil war, and chaos. Resist this. Here he is, quote tweeting Nikki Haley, keep the pressure up. Regime change in Iran would be a catastrophe. Now here he is saying you could make an argument for America striking Iran's nuclear facilities. Trump, to his credit, has been consistent on that for 15 years. But regime change, I explain why that would be a huge mistake. And, of course, here he is in the midst of it. Iran gave President Trump no choice. For a decade, he has been adamant that Iran will never get a nuclear weapon. Iran decided to forego diplomacy in pursuit of a bomb. This is a surgical strike operated perfectly. President Trump acted with prudence and decisiveness. Kirk made a lot of these statements that we criticized him pretty harshly for. This sounds a lot like, hey, I'm not going to talk about Epstein anymore. I'm going to trust my friends in government. You know, this guy had a direct line of communication to the White House. He spoke with J.D. Vance very often. J.D. Vance said he lobbied the administration hard against further involvement in Iran. So these kind of statements where he heaps praise on them was clearly a ploy to maintain access and maintain some influence. That was a game he certainly played, and it was extremely frustrating to a lot of people, including ourselves, when, he, meaning Charlie Kirk, talked about the Epstein files for all these years and then said, well, I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I trust the president. Well, as we've learned, and I'm not necessarily excusing that. Like, I think this is a dumb statement meant to manufacture consent for an imperialist foreign policy. And yes, he was against the regime change war, but he did dip his toes in flattery of the president to maintain access. He figured, hey, you know what? If I burn him the way Marjorie Taylor Greene burned him, I'm not going to be able to influence policy at all. I'm going to be driven out of the circle. So he made a choice to stay in. And when you stay in, but you don't cooperate, that's when things get very dangerous. And things got very dangerous between him and these Zionist donors to TPUSA over the course of the summer. We know that because here we have Max Blumenthal here showing this tweet. TPUSA's Andrew Colvett has confirmed the authenticity of texts showing Charlie Kirk declaring he was left with, quote, no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause, and complaining that Jewish donors had bullied him. Netanyahu cutouts like Josh Hammer were on this chat and lied. Yeah, we remember we covered this. Charlie Kirk there, Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this. Leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. So that was over the summer between the 12-day war and now, of course, this much more severe confrontation. So to frame it as though, no, he was fine with this, never had a problem with any of the Israelis or the donors or any of that network. I mean, of course, Levin is just gaslighting there. And perhaps he's lying to his audience who might not be informed enough to even know this happened. Since, I mean, think of the information bubble you have to live in to get your news from Mark Levin. Just extraordinary. But hey, on the Charlie Kirk front, this broke just before we came on the show. Joe Kent said he would testify in trial of Charlie Kirk's alleged assassin. In an interview with Michael Schellenberger, Kent said he knew that he might be called as a witness before he made his statements that a foreign nexus may have been involved in Kirk's assassination. Quote, I was definitely warned of that over and over again, said Kent. If I end up having to play that role, then I'll do it. It's not something I'm seeking. When pressed that his testimony could help the Robinson defense, Kent said, then honestly, so be it. If it gets us to the truth, that's obviously the risk I'm taking. Yeah, sounds like a pretty big risk you're taking. Obviously, I wish Joe Kent very well, but that sounds like dangerous territory to me when you talk about testifying at a trial. So he has not really backed down from his suspicions. I don't think any amount of gaslighting or spin from Mark Levin is going to change that. But Mark Levin, TPUSA itself, they are just completely shameless when it comes to, co-opting Charlie Kirk from the grave to try and manufacture consent for this war by trying to spin things as if he was all for it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Joe Kent is still really a good soldier for Trump. Online he was just tweeting about how Trump has the strength to negotiate an end. He was pumping up Trump's noises. Now you could say maybe the same thing for him as for Kirk. Like he's trying to have influence, but I think that ship has sailed, dude. When you write that kind of letter, these people, there's no coming back from that. No. There's no, hey, what does Joe Kent say about this? No, I mean you're done.
Sorry to cut you off. I think he understands the stakes, and I think he felt like resigning was the most powerful statement he could make, the loudest alarm he could sound that something is wrong here.
Yes.
Exactly. And now that he's played that card already, he figures, well, now I'm still going to act like there's hope, because I think he understands the existential stakes here. I think he's very scared about what is in store for this world unless there is a radical change in direction. So that's what I think is motivating that sort of posturing.
Yeah, but you look at Mark Levin, and this is where I look at all of these guys, and I cannot imagine how their days are just not numbered. I would love to see the numbers on Levin's show, because all of these people built their brand on representing completely the opposite of the positions that they promote and defend now. I mean, Levin was one of these Trump guys. Well, I mean, what was Trump? No more Middle Eastern wars, right? There's an
Levin
inherent.
was always a neocon, though. He was a Johnny Come Lately. He was a never Trumper in 2016.
Well, a lot of those guys flipped over to Trump. That's what I thought. That's what I remembered from back then. I mean, Shapiro too.
Shapiro too was a never Trumper as well.
Even during the
all that whole
first
thing.
term.
Yep.
Even during the first term, he was very anti-Trump.
He didn't vote for Trump in 2016. Shapiro,
but they all came around to it. At this point, there's absolutely no coherent political point of view here. Everything that Trump ran on, from the Epstein files to no more Middle Eastern wars, is in the trash. Like, what is that at this point? Like, what is that? And when you consider the level of personal destruction that not only people around the world, but Americans are going to experience before this is all over, and hopefully it's not in the form of nuclear destruction, in which case everything's kind of irrelevant. But if things just continue with conventional weapons, you have Americans living paycheck to paycheck who cannot absorb these kinds of extra costs, not just with fuel. That's going to go throughout the entire economy. That's going to boost the price of food that was already inflated. It's going to boost the price of all consumer products. How are people going to afford that? Everybody who hitched their star to this wagon, their days are numbered. Their days are numbered, whether it be in politics, whether it be in media. There's no coming back from this level of catastrophe that this administration has brought on the country. And that is not an advertisement for the Democrats. As many people are pointing out, they're very silent. They're very silent. Where are the articles of impeachment? Where are the demands? I'm over here, so I'm not able to cover it on the ground. But I saw they're organizing a big No Kings rally. They're not even talking about Iran. They're not even mentioning it. I wish I was fucking in New York so I could hold up a big stop bombing Iran and bomb Israel sign. Because when I went to that No Kings rally a few months ago, you remember.
Let's not talk about that. It's divisive. It's divisive.
Let's not talk about Israel. I would love to see how those fucking yentas would react now that we're bombing Iran to a big yay Iran sign, hit the martyr Iran. What a fucking joke, man. You're going to have nationwide No Kings rallies in the middle of a war and not talk about the war because you're afraid some fucking Zionist scum in your coalition might be bothered by it. You're muted.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it looks this Saturday. But no, I mean, speaking to your point, about these people, their days being numbered, reputationally speaking, of course. That's why Joe Kent resigned. Joe Kent has a political future now because he resigned. Whereas, guys like Rubio and guys like they're not going to be elected. Shit, they're not going to be viable when this. And I think the same is true for media people and stuff. I think that's why. Look, man, we've talked a lot about Alex Jones over the course of the last couple years, and different speculation about why he's changed his tune under the weight of a massive lawsuit and probably desperate to keep the lights on. Even a guy like that realized he couldn't go along with this. It's not even if you are just trying to survive economically, this is not it. This is too damning. It's not a politically survivable event. None of this is. All right. Let me go to our read here. Okay.
All right, I gotta get up for a second because this chair's killing me, man.
So here's a little inside scoop that many creators are talking about behind the scenes. We've talked about it a few different times on the show here as well. It's actually one of the reasons why we use Rumble as much as we do, of course. They have made a way to super chat us creators so that we get paid immediately and without any fees. So while YouTube and Twitch can take up to 50% fees when you tip us, that this method that I'm going to tell you about right here takes none. That's right. The platform takes zero fees. We keep nearly 100% of what you send us, so it's a great way to support us if you like to send super chats and or Rumble rants. You can super chat with Bitcoin, Tether USD, or even Tether Gold stable coins. That tip will show up directly on our Rumble chat, which of course we read live on the air. All you got to do is download the Rumble wallet on the App Store and send the tips to your favorite creators, i.e. us. So you can go to wallet.rumble.com, or you can download the app directly from the app stores. What an amazing way to rid yourself of the middleman and help the creator economy. So shout out to Rumble for making this disruptive technology. That's wallet.rumble.com. You can search Rumble Wallet on the App Store. You can scan the QR code here. Super easy to send a Rumble rant via Rumble Wallet. You do it just as you would any other Rumble rant. And before you send, it gives you the option whether to send that chat in USD or through your Rumble Wallet through a currency of your choice. So that's wallet.rumble.com. Shout out once again for making this disruptive technology happen. That's wallet.rumble.com. Okay, let's take some more chats over here. Dark Matter Zombies, thank you for the $100. Landrew, what's up, Landrew? That's loud. Boom, 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 Tel Aviv. This is what you get for all your evil deeds. We're all Palestinian now. Free Palestine, and we will all be free. And why did they run out of characters? That should have copied the whole thing. Well, I have the rest of it, Landrew. Don't worry. Community and solidarity, nation of due dissidents. Thank you, Landrew. As always, appreciate that.
Landrew is dead.
Very much. Okay, Steph Fife, if you can, please weigh in on Richard Medhurst's liquefied natural gas theory. Need this filtered through greater minds than mine. Well, he's a greater mind than ours, so it would be kind of redundant for us to comment on that. I would say trust him. Trust him. He knows better than us. I haven't had a chance to watch his video yet, but yeah, if he said it, I think you can kind of go through him. You know, we would not be an upgrade on his take. We'd probably just be like, that sounds about right. It feels like the Mark Levin show has a lot of micro penis energy. Yes, that's what Megyn Kelly called him, a micro penis. I'm so sick of hearing Lindsey Graham. The only thing I want to hear him say is, Thank you, Mark Pugliese. Angry Pro. DD, any politician can travel for publicity. Yeah, no, that was a publicity trip.
Yeah.
When it comes to Jeremy Corbyn, reference the Liberation News Network and the Class Consciousness Project.
Libertarian News Network.
Oh, Libertarian News Network? And the okay. Yeah. I thought it was the Liberation News Network. Is there a Liberation News Network? I thought somebody recommended that to me. Anyway, the Class Consciousness Project. I encourage you to research those you praise some more. I don't know what it means to you that we like Jeremy Corbyn less. Who cares? Who cares? I know some people are talking about, it's not just Jeremy Corbyn, and I'm not just picking on you, but, there are people who say that Joe Kent is an op, and Joe Kent is, still a Zionist and all that. And I just don't understand what difference it makes how much we like Joe Kent here. Like, I don't necessarily like Joe Kent. Well, who cares? Who cares if I like him at all? Like, if I'm telling people based on this, like if he runs for office and I tell you should donate to Joe Kent, or you should campaign, well, then obviously you have to look at the full picture here. But what difference does it make whether I like someone or not, or how much faith I have in someone? It's not a matter of faith or not faith, or like or not like, or even trust or not trust. The fact of the matter is, to be Tulsi Gabbard's number 2 guy and resign and say definitively Iran posed no imminent threat, that act is a heroic act, whether I like the guy or not. whether big picture he shares many of my views or not, like, he did a thing that was a heroic thing to do. It's really all I care about when it comes to Joe Kent. You know what I mean? Like, if we're not going to say that's a heroic thing and say, well, maybe that was a great thing, but what about his views on this other thing? To me, that's just, it strikes me as just gossipy. Like who cares?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're playing the old game, man. We're not fans of anybody. Like, we don't do fandom. We'll call out if you do something good. Like Tucker, man. I've done whole ass segments showing demonstrably he lied about what he knew about his father being in the CIA. Demonstrably. You can find 2 different interviews where he says 2 different things about it. I still do positive segments on him when he does something positive. We both do, even though there's that. Like, it's just, this bullshit is just not productive. I want to know where you think that goes. I want to know where you think that goes. You know, there are people who we do support who have views I don't agree with, who have certain things I don't agree with, people that you probably like. You want me to litigate everything I don't agree with them about so that then I cut them off? Like, you could do that with anybody. Who would pass that test? I want to know. Like, who would pass that test? Would you? Would you pass that test?
Well,
you see, once you go down that road, you could get that turned against you, right? Well, what about you? It's listen, again, you're working for the fucking intelligence agencies. That's all you're doing, man. When you go down this road, you are doing the CIA's work for them. You don't have to be a fan of anybody. Like, it isn't, to me, that's the lesson I came away from the Bernie campaign with. Never be a fan. Never be a fan.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
All right. Why don't we move right on along? Airports.
All right.
I love this
story. So, hang on. Sorry, I didn't reset the slides when I loaded in the videos.
All right.
Okay.
Oh, hold on. Before we start this segment, let's just get this out of the way here. 2525. In the year 2525. And 1050 in the like column. All right.
Okay. So, hey, if you've been waiting on 4-hour lines at the airport, don't worry, problem solved. On Monday, ICE will be going to airports to help out our wonderful TSA agents who have stayed on the job. Well, no, they haven't. That's the problem. It turns out people need to get paid. Despite the fact that the radical left Democrats, who are only focused on protecting hardline criminals who have entered our country illegally, are endangering the USA by holding back the money that was long ago agreed to with signed and sealed contracts and all. But watch, no matter how great a job ICE does, the lunatics leading the incompetent Dems will be highly critical of their work. They will do a fantastic job. The great Tom Homan is in charge. And we told them, you guys, I know a lot of you are not familiar with the soap and the water, but listen, you're going to be working the airports, not taking down Mexicans. You're going to have to shower a little more, guys. You're going to have to bathe a little more. So here is Tom Homan. All right. You know what Tom Homan looks like to me? He looks like the pinhead in Beetlejuice if you rehydrated his head.
Yeah, a little bit,
yeah. So here he is explaining what ICE agents will be doing in the airport.
Into American airports starting Monday?
Yes. And I'm currently working on the plan now of execution, working with the director of ICE and administrator at TSA, the acting administrator. So we'll put together a plan today and we'll execute tomorrow.
With respect, if you're doing this in 24 hours, how well thought out could it possibly be?
Again, ICE has been at airports across the country for a long time. It's just expanding those things. Look, How much of a plan does it mean to guard an exit to make sure no one comes through that exit?
Are ICE agents even remotely trained to handle security at airports?
ICE agents receive a high level of training. And, the ICE agents are assigned at many airports across the country already. They do a lot of investigation, criminal investigation.
A lot of them took gym in high school. A lot of them have experience tossing around the medicine ball. No, they're very highly trained. They're exceptional physical and mental specimens. The people we get to take down brown people selling churros on the corner. That's the best and the brightest sign up for that kind of work.
A lot of these guys says they love going through people's bags and sniffing their wife's panties.
Highly trained ICE law enforcement officer can cover an exit, makes people don't go through those exits, entering the airport through the exits, and that stuff like that relieves that TSA officer to go to screening and to reduce those lines. I don't see an ICE agent looking at an X-ray machine because they're not trained in that.
What you're saying is when you move ICE into airports, they are going to be just around the exits and the exteriors. They're not going to be helping people get through the lines and screening people's bags.
Those discussions are going on now. I'm not expert at TSA, so that's why I'm talking to the TSA administrator and the ICE director, find out where we can fit in.
Will ICE officers also be doing immigration enforcement while they are at the airports?
We do immigration enforcement at airports all the time, so is that going to change? It's not going to change.
All right. Yeah, so nothing to worry about. They do that all the time. So let's take a look at what that looks like when they do that all the time. To be clear, this happened a few hours before ICE was officially deployed to the airport. This is ICE at the airport snatching a mother from her daughter in the San Francisco airport. This is going to be great having these guys working in the airports.
Where's a badge?
Where's your badge?
Can someone call 911?
Oh yeah, this is going to be awesome.
Let me see your badge. Okay. No, can I see your badge? I don't know if that's legitimate.
Is this nice?
Can I see your badge number, sir? What is your name? What is your name? Where's your badge number? I'm asking for your badge number, sir. What is your badge number?
They should cut this into an ad for tourism to the USA.
What is your badge number? We need to see your badge number. Show your badge number.
Show us the badge.
This is an illegal arrest. Show the badge number.
It's okay. We'll wait
I
here.
need to see your
Yeah,
badge
step
number.
back.
Leave her alone. Fucking, what are you doing?
Leave her alone.
What the hell are you doing?
I hope you're so fucking proud of yourselves, you fucking assholes. You're on video now, too. Yeah. Shame on you. You fucking un-American pieces of shit. Fuck you.
Yeah, no, these guys should be working security at the airports. The tourism to the United States has not collapsed quite enough. We want nobody coming here at all.
Yeah, no, you're going to pay triple for the ticket, and then you arrive to that.
Yeah. Even if you're not the one being detained, do you really want to visit a country where that could be going on in the airport when you arrive? And hey, this meme sums it up pretty well. I'm just following orders. 1830s American West. I'm just following orders. 1940s Nazi Germany. And an ICE agent. I'm just following orders. President Day USA. You know, that excuse generally does not wash over time. The guys who are protecting you now, they're not always going to be in power, you know. Not always going to be in power. Daddy's making you take off your mask. A lot of footage now of what you guys look like. How do you think that's going to go when these people are out of power? Hey, we're not big supporters of what they replaced. What do you think's going to happen when you remember those cancel culture people? Well, they're going to be back. They're going to be back. And what do you think they're going to do with those images of you when they get back into power? Think about it, guys. Kyle Potter. CNN has published a list of the 13 U.S. airports where ICE has been deployed this morning. Atlanta, Chicago, Cleveland, Houston, Fort Myers, New Orleans, New York JFK, New York LaGuardia, Newark. So that's all three of the major airports in New York City. Newark is kind of a de facto other international airport of New York City. Philadelphia, Phoenix, Pittsburgh, and San Juan, Puerto Rico. Okay. I thought it wasn't part of the United States. Isn't that what Trump said? It wasn't part of the United States. All right. So here's a little bit about what's been going on at the airports and what the TSA union has to say about bringing in ICE officers from ABC.
Houston's airports are seeing nearly half their staff help, writing that putting untrained personnel at security check control, and Republicans are rejecting that deal. The president of the union that represents TSA workers says in a statement that putting ICE at airports won't help, writing that putting untrained personnel at security checkpoints does not fill a gap, it creates one. Without a paycheck, TSA workers are making ends meet by calling out and working other jobs. Both of Houston's airports are seeing nearly half their staffs call out. New Orleans, Atlanta, and JFK, all more than 30%. Those call-outs are leading to painful scenes like these.
This is crazy.
Long lines in New Orleans stretching deep into parking garages.
Maybe 2 hours, you kind of lose track.
And this was the line in Atlanta. Travelers reporting wait times of 153 minutes.
It was massive. I've never seen anything like it.
Katrina Terrell got to the airport 3 hours early for her flight out of Atlanta, but couldn't make it through this winding TSA line in time and missed her flight.
Our flight was at 11:10. However, when it started getting to 10:45, I said, oh, we're not going to make this flight. It was something that I've never seen before, and I hope I don't see it again.
At Houston's Bush Intercontinental Airport, those wait times shot up to nearly 4 hours Sunday. The nation's 60,000 TSA workers haven't received a full paycheck since the partial government shutdown began 38 days ago. They'll get another $0 paycheck at the end of this week.
So how, of course, do you...
All right. So I want to ask you, my fellow Americans, have you ever seen this in any other country? Have you ever seen anything like that in any other country? Americans have to stop talking about failed states as if they're not living in one. America is a failed state. It is a failed state. I don't know anywhere in the world that every few months there's a government shutdown of one kind or another. I don't know anywhere else in the world where they would allow this kind of chaos to ensue in their vital transportation networks. These are vital transportation networks. This is a vital part of the nation, of the national security, of the national commerce. How do you even allow something like that to happen? You name one country where you've ever seen anything like that. America is a failed state. It is a failed state living off plunder accumulated by past generations. That is all that's propping it up. The advantages that were gained from generations of plunder, imperialism, and militarism. You're living off the fumes of that. But that shit, how do Americans even talk about failed states and bad governments? Look at that. Look at that, man. That's to call that banana republic would be an insult to banana republics. I don't even know what you call that. I'm over here in countries that have GDPs like, a fraction of the size of like one state in the United States. And you don't see that. You only see that in America. But you know who thinks the idea of sending ICE agents into the airports is like, the invention of the light bulb? Donald Trump. Donald Trump. He is in awe of his own genius idea.
We're dealing really. Mine. That was mine. That was like the paperclip. You know the story of the paperclip? 182 years ago, a man discovered.
He knows
the
this like the back of his hand. The story of the
So
paperclip.
simple. And everybody that looked at it say, "Why didn't I think of that?" ICE was my idea. I called. First person I called was Tom Homan. I said, "What do you think?" He said, "I think it's great." Then I saw today there was some masks on. I didn't think the masks were appropriate. I put out a statement and I asked them, would it be possible to take off the mask? Because they should wear a mask when they're dealing with the murderers and the thugs let into our country.
You said there's many points of agreement with Iran right now. What can you give us?
Oh yeah, that was quite a quite a presser there.
I love how he has the paperclip knowledge ready to go. Like he's so well versed in that. It's 182 years ago. In the paperclip.
And another thing, Louis Pasteur.
Yeah.
He looked deeply into the source of the viruses, just like I'm doing. The brown people, they're the virus in the body politic there. Yeah, man, that is amazing. Oh, I came up with it. And yeah, no, that's how people are looking at this. Oh, eureka. This is such a eureka moment. Why don't we send ICE to the airports? I can't believe I didn't think of that myself.
Well, it's amazing because the Republicans in Congress are trying to blame this on the Democrats. They're saying because they won't fund the DHS, the TSA people, so you can blame the fact that we need ICE there on the Democrats. But he's like, no, it was my idea. Don't you love ICE being at the airports? Like, I'm telling you, the guy's lost his fastball. Like if you're trying to salvage this, you try and blame this on the other party. This is not something you take credit for. This is something you pass the blame for. But no, he doesn't. He's not even getting that.
Well. Now and in this next clip, he does try to tar the Democrats, but in the most apropos of nothing way you can imagine.
I want to thank ICE because they stepped in so strongly. They'll do great. And if that's not enough, I'll bring in the National Guard. We're not going to have the Democrats destroy our country. These people are the most destructive, sick people, the Democrats. And they're fighting for this. They're fighting for men and women's sports. They're fighting for transgender for everybody. Everybody
that's
go
completely
out,
relevant
get
to
your
this
kid
topic.
a nice operation, and change the sex of your kid. They're fighting for, think of it.
That's the battle of the day.
Yeah.
That's the real. That's the cause du jour.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. I actually responded the other day to a quote tweeted Riley Gaines because you can see her. She can feel the grift slipping away as World War III arrives. And she's over there. Don't ever tell me Democrats care more about women. In fact, they don't even know what a woman is. Yeah. We heard it. We
got it.
Honey.
We got it.
We got it, honey. We're about to send Marines into a shooting gallery. We got more important things on our mind than this. Man.
A lot of trans women on your hands pretty soon from soldiers trying to get out of dying for Israel.
Yes, exactly, and getting their balls blown off in a misguided adventure. But hey, there's another way that we could have solved this problem rather than sending ICE into the airport, and actually solved it. The Republicans and Democrats apparently already agreed to a funding bill, and Trump shot it down. Here's his own party member, John Paul Kennedy.
Up with a plan. We said, look, it's a two-step process. The Democrats have offered to open up everything but ICE. Ted and I said, okay, let's accept their offer. And then at the same time, we would offer a bill for reconciliation where we don't need any Democratic votes to do whatever we wanted to do with ICE. And that way we're out of the shutdown and DHS is back open. We submitted that. Senator Thune submitted that to President Trump, as is his right. He said no deals with the Democrats. So we're back to square one.
Okay. Now, the latest reporting is that Republicans met with Trump in the White House, and they're trying to hammer out a deal where ICE will get funding, but not for immigration enforcement, for criminal investigations and such, like other things that fall within the normal purview of ICE, but not the immigration funding. So that was the latest as of airtime. But Trump mentioned a little bit in that interview about not wanting them to wear masks. So he truthed out here. I am a big proponent of ICE wearing masks as they search for and are forced to deal with hardened criminals, many of whom were led into our country by sleepy Joe Biden and his wonderful border czar Kamala. She never even went to the border. Through their he's really trying to play the hits, man. Through their absolutely insane border policy. Right, he lost his fastball. This is like when you watch a formerly great band working through their greatest hits and they can't quite play them anymore. I would greatly appreciate, this is like a Paul Simon concert here. I would greatly appreciate, however, no masks when helping our country out of the Democrat-caused mess at the airports, etc. So, okay. All right. So there's a reason these guys are wearing masks, for the same reason executioners used to wear masks, because they knew they would be persona non grata everywhere they went if people knew who they were. So let's see how it's going for the newly unmasked ICE agents at the airports.
Go on, Neil, 2-6.
No, that's good. You go check the construction workers' papers there. They won't be able to build the restaurants. They won't be able to. In a fan fiction scenario, I thought like all the restaurants in the airports close when ICE comes because no one shows up to cook the food. You know, just like a cascading tragic comedy of mishaps.
Yeah, no, this is going to be great for these guys. What, did you think Daddy was going to protect you? Do you think Daddy was going to make sure that your face didn't get plastered all over the internet? You understand your lives, and we don't mean literally when we say this, but your lives are going to be over when these people are out of power. Your faces are going to be fucking plastered everywhere. When the power base shifts, remember those cancel culture people? They're coming back. They're coming back. And what do you think the first thing they're going to do is over the internet? Don't hire this person. That is what's going to, that is your future. That is your future if you chose to take part in this. That is exactly what they're going to do. I promise you. Mark my words. They are going to compile every image of an ICE agent available on the internet, and they're going to circulate it everywhere. And they're going to go on doxing campaigns, and they're going to go to employers of anyone who hires you and demand that you be fired. That is your future. That is your future if you're an ICE agent and your face is getting exposed. Even if it's not. My prediction is once Democrats are back in power, someone's going to leak the list of who the agents are. That's what I think is going to happen.
Well, it's funny, I noticed in watching these videos a very distinct difference in the way they carry themselves when they don't have the masks on, because Trump asked them not to wear the mask. Like you got videos of like one of the ICE guys like trying to move the line along. Sorry about this, guys. We'll have you moving away. Like all of a sudden they're like bartenders, right? With the mask on, it's get on the fucking floor. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly.
Good go.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're going to the terrorist list.
Yeah. Now they're gonna serve cocktail franks here without the masks on. Yeah. Your friendly neighborhood ICE agent all of a sudden. Yeah.
Yeah, they got all shy now. Okay, well, hey, they're really accomplishing a lot though. Atlanta Airport looks like ICE wandering around aimlessly has solved everything. Your tax dollars at work, folks. Yep. Wow. Getting that line moving. Yep. Wow. Wow. From Jesus freaking Congress. He's a journalist, actually. TSA agents make 35 to 40K a year. ICE agents make 65 to 100. So instead of just paying TSA, the Trump administration decided to send ICE agents to international airports to wander around terminals, further proving this isn't about reducing TSA lines. And another reason we need to defund DHS and move TSA under the Department of Transportation. Yeah. There's the work the ICE agents are doing. I have not been able to find any evidence of ICE doing anything useful. If there's any evidence of that out there, let us know. But most of it is this. These guys wandering around. Also from Jesus freaking Congress, they're not all following the mask order. ICE agents are at airports stationed inside terminals while wearing masks. Journalist Nick Valencia filmed his own experience traveling through Atlanta this morning, spending nearly an hour getting through TSA, only to walk into the terminal and see ICE agents already inside, not screening passengers or reducing wait times, just standing there masked. This isn't about fixing delays. It's about putting Trump's secret police inside everyday civilian spaces.
Busy and crowded Atlanta International Airport. It took me about an hour to get through TSA today, but that was only because of a very kind TSA clear agent. There's ICE right there. There they are. There you go. There's one, and then there's two. I was going to say I didn't see ICE agents here, but there they are.
All right, so you think that's paranoid? You think that's paranoid that they're doing this to prepare you for having ICE agents in public spaces to intimidate people and do policing functions they're not supposed to be doing? Well, here's Sloppy Steve, Jeffrey Epstein's favorite PR consultant. Here he is laying it out.
Of today, we can use what's happening with these ICE helping out at the airports. We can use this as a test run, as a test case to really perfect ICE's involvement in the 2026 midterm election, sir.
Yeah, I think we should have ICE agents at the
What have we
polling
been
places
telling you?
because if you're an illegal alien, you can't vote, right? It's against the law. It's a federal crime for you to vote in federal elections. And so if you're an American citizen, you should be happy that ICE is there because you're not going to have illegal aliens canceling out your vote.
Yeah, the guys who shot a VA nurse in the head and a mother trying to drive to work. Yeah, no. Why would you not want these people around polling places? Why would you not want these poorly trained, half-bright, recently fired from 7-Eleven, but heavily armed psychos hanging around polling stations? Why would you not want that? Yes, of course they're sending ICE agents to the polling stations. Of course they're doing that. Of course. I think that's a given. Now, will courts step in and stop them? Maybe. I mean, I don't see how that's not blatantly illegal. But certainly they're going to try. I've been saying this for a while, that they are going to start increasingly to deploy ICE as a federal police force. If what we think may be coming is coming, where you're going to get gas prices at $6, $7, you're going to have major civil unrest. They built a Gestapo to send out to crush civil unrest, to crush protesters, to crush dissent. That's part of why they wear a mask, man, because they're going to send them out there, as they already have been, to do grossly illegal shit, and they don't want them to be held accountable. That is coming. And I think Sloppy Steve there, I think he's right. I think they saw this as an opportunity to test it out. Let's see if we start sending ICE out to do other things. Let's start preparing them for that. Let's start getting the public accustomed to it. I always bring up this show. It was executive produced by Oliver Stone from the 80s. Wild Palms. All the episodes are on YouTube for free. That struck me when I watched it, that it was a very plausible vision of a dystopian future America that kind of subtly turned into a police state so that people don't object to it and they don't even really notice it. So you see people jogging in the suburbs and there's a guy getting grabbed and thrown into a black car in the background, and people just keep kind of going about their business. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create an atmosphere where you get used to these things happening and you stop reacting to them because it just becomes normalized. As far as the airports themselves go, I mean, it looks like these Republicans sat down with Trump and said, "Listen, we're going to get killed. We're getting killed in there's horrible optics going into a midterm election. We got to do something about this." And it seems like they might have gotten him to agree to something, so that particular nightmare may be over soon. But again, man, no functioning state has something like this happen every few months. Like, this is a very extreme manifestation, but every few months the government shuts down. That's not normal. I don't know any country on earth where every few months the government shuts down. The collapse just seems to be accelerating.
Well, I predicted, I was the first, to my knowledge. I wasn't piggybacking off of anybody when I said I think their play is going to end up being, just massive voter suppression, which would include deploying ICE to the polling stations. Will the courts object? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know what the legality of it is. I don't know what they'll say. Can they just claim it's an emergency and we, these are national, right? Like, the courts can't keep them out of Minneapolis, right? So what can you do? It's a scary thought, because I don't know if they can keep them out. And even if they can keep them out, like, what are they going to do if they show up there? They just show up day of.
Right.
What are you going to do? Sue them? Get them to leave? I don't know what you can do. It is a very scary thought. In terms of the airport thing, Bannon's saying this is a test run. I think I don't know to what extent they intended this as a test run to that. I think they wanted to use this as a threat against the Democrats to get them to fund DHS. I think, once again, just like in the healthcare fight, just like in the ACA subsidy fight, they're playing a hand that they don't really have the cards to play, right? Like, they probably expected Democrats to cave when they threatened to send ICE to the airports. Okay, well, I guess we'll give you your money. But when you look at the polls here, just like in the ACA subsidy fight, 31%. I think the Democrats' blame for this is like -5, and the Republicans' blame for this is like -19. So people are overwhelmingly blaming Donald Trump for it. They're trying to spin this as, oh, the Democrats won't give Trump his money, so he has to send ICE there. People are like, no, just like they were during the ACA subsidies. We know what you're trying to do. We know you're trying to destroy people's health care, and so we fault you for this shutdown, just like is the case here. No, we understand that ICE murdered 2 protesters in the streets, and people demanded that there be consequences for that. And so as a result, they're withholding funding. People understand that, right? You're not going to blame these lines. And this is the other thing, man. Like, now you're talking about creating the same problem that was created when ICE tried to build out all of those detention facilities. I think they wanted 23. I believe
Right.
they only got 11. That's what I believe. I'm not 100% clear on those numbers, but I think they got about half of what they wanted because they ran into the NIMBY problem, right? People don't,
Right.
even people who like ICE, even people who like this immigration crackdown, they don't want this shit around them, especially the PMC. What was that? What did that article refer to them as? I forget the adjective, but the millionaire class, the small business class, which is really the power base of the Republican Party going back generations. They tend to fly, right? They don't want to see this when they go fly. They don't want to wait 5 hours online and have ICE agents running around the airport. You're creating a NIMBY problem everywhere. And so it's just really extraordinary to see just a deliberate effort to just destroy the country, just to make it unlivable and so undesirable. Who's going to come to America now? You got ICE at the airport. You actually think people are going to be grateful that they're there? Like, what planet are you on? What fucking world are you living in? It's
Right.
bizarre.
Yeah, no, you've already had all these horror stories about people who are going to the U.S. on vacation being detained by ICE, and now you throw this into the mix, having ICE at the actual airports. Yeah, it's just, if you got if you have any kind of tourism business, you are fucked, man. Jesus.
Yeah, no, really, really bad stuff. All right, you want to take some Rumble rants and super chats there?
Sure.
Oh, let me do the scroll while you're doing that. Go ahead, get started.
Stoop sign. Botswana, you gotta be kidding me. Oh, I hated that. I hated every second of that chat. I hate puns. Area hermit woman. No one vote sends message that we comply with. No vote sends message that we comply with duopoly. Showing up, writing in is protest. Our votes only count for statistics. Dems ran Kamala Harris to gain Donald Trump support. Listen, man, I've been saying I've been saying for a while before I even came over here. Like the only thing that's going to fix America is a revolution. I also say there is absolutely no infrastructure or coherent political movement that could form one. So you're 10 steps away from even beginning to do what needs to be done in America. I'm sorry, but that's what I see. Race car. Chuck Norris doesn't wear a watch because he decides what time it is. Sorry, this is the last Chuck Norris joke, I promise. Okay, you know what I would love to do? Like, once I get back, if, every time I read something like this ICE in the airport story, I'm like, well, the odds that I am going to cancel my ticket back in May just ticked up another 5%. We'll see what's happening by then. But I would love to do a video essay about those 80s refighting the Vietnam War movies, because Stallone was the A-list version of that. But Chuck Norris had this whole missing in action series. This was a whole thing. If you're young, you might not remember this. As a way of being aggrieved about Vietnam, rather than to feel guilty about it, there was this whole fiction created that there were a bunch of Americans that the Vietnamese still had captive somewhere in the jungle. They had the black flags, bring them home, MIAs, like there are these mystery MIAs. Chuck Norris did a whole series of films about Chuck Norris going and rescuing the MIAs that the evil Vietnamese are still keeping locked up in cages in the jungle. It was just unbelievable propaganda. Vienticus Prime. Yes, Russell, you are correct. Fuck hero worship. Fuck declaring yourself as part of a team. Those are for the slave-minded. What use do intelligent people have for a leader? You're right. You're right. The only leader I might follow would be the brain, as in Pinky and the Brain. Eric Rousseau, the lesson of Wilt Chamberlain, never be a fan. That's right. He disappointed us all. Brad Gilbert. Good liars tell a bit of truth to keep you hooked. Well, yes. And Trump was a good liar until he lost his fastball. P. Walker, of course ICE agents are trained. We provide them with training comic books. Homan, he didn't say that, right? I mean, with this crew, he totally might have said that. Vienticus Prime, what percentage of people that ICE goes after are parents? Oh, gee, I wonder what must happen with the kids after the parents get taken away. It was all obvious from the start. Epstein enforcement. I saved a story. Sometimes you have these think pieces you want to get to. We almost never manage to with the world on fire. But I think they dropped the stats. I think it's like 9,000 children who have been separated from their parents because of ICE, who are citizens. Like the children are citizens.
It's horrible.
Afro Remus. Mr. Joe is not to be taken seriously. His wife died under ISIS. Now President ISIS is one of Trump's friends. Even came to visit and planned some basketball at the White House. He should have resigned.
Resigned then, I think that's what he said. Yeah, should have resigned
then. I see. That makes a little more sense. Vienticus Prime, I can't wait to have ICE validating my tax returns. I don't think those guys can read. I don't think you have to worry about that. That kind of advanced math, I think, is quite beyond them. Eric Rousseau, can we use airline miles to bypass the fascism at check-in? Eric Rousseau dropped some bangers, man. All right. You want to do your
all right.
Let me last piece? Is that your last one?
Last piece, yep. And by the way, Film Club for members, dudissidents.com/Patreon. Film Club this Saturday night, we're going to be doing a John Pilger documentary called Cambodia Year Zero. Since Russell is in Cambodia, there's a great library of Pilger documentaries on Right Brain TV, who's our partner for that. So once again, if you go to rightbraintv.com and you use the coupon code DD2026, you get 40% off an annual membership. And then to watch our Film Club presentations of their catalog, become a member, dudissidents.com/Patreon, Substack, or Locals. All right, everybody. We got one more piece here on the afternoon. So the Supreme Court heard the big mail-in ballot case yesterday. Supreme Court could overturn laws in 29 states that allow mail-in ballots to be counted after Election Day. Let's take a look at the report here.
Received after Election Day in a case that could have an impact in nearly 30 states that allow some kind of grace period. The RNC is challenging a Mississippi law that allows ballots to be counted up to 5 business days after Election Day if they're postmarked by Election Day. Justice Alito was among the biggest skeptics during Monday's arguments.
Independence Day, birthday, and Election Day, and they're all particular days. So if we start with that, if I have nothing more to look at than the phrase Election Day, I think this is the day in which everything is going to take place.
Wow, was that your audition for the Kamala Harris cover band? Wow, there's a birthday, Election Day, those are days. So these are all days. So why shouldn't they just continue to be days? Wow.
Justice Kagan questioned
like
the
sands
impact
through
of
the
that
hourglass.
logic on practices
These are the days of our lives.
Yeah.
like early voting.
It seems to me it's a rule that prevents early voting because you're basically saying there are 2 things that have to happen, and they have to happen on Election Day.
Meaning the casting of the vote and the receipt of that vote. But attorney Paul Clement, representing the RNC, said the argument is that the process be consummated or completed by Election Day. A number of the justices also raised the issue of the potential for the appearance of fraud when votes arrive and are counted after Election Day. And there wind up being shifts in vote totals and how that may impact public confidence.
Oh, so because people lie and say that, there have been, these massive ballot harvesting operations, and some people believe that, that's reason to do away with a lot of the mail-in voting privileges that you afford people who can't vote in person. No, that's really sound. Well, because some people are under the impression that there's widespread fraud going on, that we should just do away with it. We should just make it so that if it doesn't arrive on election day, we just don't count it. Because otherwise, some people are going to be convinced that something is afoot. I mean, some people are going to be convinced of everything. People say and believe all kinds of crazy shit. The idea that like that is rationale to overturn mail-in voting to me seems totally insane. But most outlets, I will highlight most, not all, this is kind of interesting, seem to believe that the court is poised to strike down that Mississippi law, which allows ballots to be counted after Election Day if they're mailed in or postmarked before Election Day. The Hill Supreme Court seems wary of states counting mail ballots that arrive after Election Day. Forbes Supreme Court suggests it may not allow mail-in ballots after Election Day. The AP, the Supreme Court, seems skeptical of laws in 14 states that allow counting of mail ballots that arrive after Election Day. New York Times, the Supreme Court appears poised to reject a Mississippi state law on late arriving mail-in ballots, a decision that could upend voting and have sweeping consequences in the midterm elections. So here's the write-up from the New York Times, a little bit of it. The case focuses on Mississippi's law, but the outcome could affect more than a dozen states. The outcome of the case could have sweeping consequences for voters in the midterm elections, potentially creating chaos among states that allow mail-in balloting. Mississippi and at least 18 other states and territories, including 2026 battleground districts in Nevada and California, allow late ballots to be counted. So does Texas, apparently, and so does Alaska. And those are two what are shaping up to be very, very close Senate races. So could affect those as well. The Republican-led Mississippi legislature adopted the law allowing late arriving ballots to be counted in 2020 during the pandemic. It is being challenged by the RNC and Mississippi State GOP. During more than 2 hours of argument on Monday, the court's 6 conservative justices repeatedly pressed the lawyer for Mississippi on what is required to make a ballot selection fully complete, suggesting that federal law sets out Election Day as the day ballots should be considered final. So when do I know whether or not a choice is final? Justice Clarence Thomas asked. Several other conservative justices, including Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who is often a key vote, also had sharp questions for Mississippi. They focused on how the state could guarantee a ballot had officially been cast by Election Day, particularly because Mississippi allows late arriving ballots to be counted when delivered by FedEx, a private company. A decision in the case is expected by late June or early July, ahead of the November vote. So here is Gorsuch, some audio from the hearing, grills Mississippi. What is that? Is an AG? I forget what the lawyer for them. I don't know what SG stands for. Stewart, on apparent contradiction in Mississippi's defense of accepting mail-in ballots after Election Day. So he comes up with a hypothetical situation where you would mail in your ballot and then want to change your vote after news breaks of what an asshole your candidate is. That's the hypothetical he comes up with here.
Let's say you have a state where a large portion of the electorate mails in their ballots on or close to Election Day. Not far-fetched. Many states are like that.
Not far-fetched.
Then, the day after the election, a story breaks that one of the lead candidates engaged in an inappropriate sexual escapade, or perhaps is concluding with a foreign power. Again, not far-fetched, I think. And the competing candidate immediately goes on the airwaves and urges voters to recall their ballots.
Let's just say, hypothetically, you fill out your ballot for a candidate and you drop it in the mail. And the following day, a story breaks that the candidate you just voted for went to Epstein Island and ate a child. You may want to take your vote back. Not far-fetched. Not far-fetched.
No, not at all.
I have some suspicions about a few of these people myself, but I can't get into that. In that case, how would you handle it? Do you allow people to take their votes back? Do they get to vote in person and cancel their mail-in ballot? What do you do?
And to tell the common carriers not to deliver them. And many common carriers will do that with anything that you send through them.
Will they?
Through them. FedEx, you just call them up and say, I want it back.
Well, apparently not.
In that hypothetical, did the election happen on election day? Oh, by the way, it swings the election.
So the election did happen on election day, Justice Gorsuch. As we've explained,
Solicitor
our ballot
General,
does not
there we go.
allow using mail recall, anything like that. When somebody submits their ballot by mail.
Just first deal.
Okay, so he says the law does not allow using mail recalls. In other words, you can't do that. You can't take the vote back.
As we've explained, our ballot does not allow using mail recall, anything like that. When somebody submits their ballot by mail.
Just first deal with my hypothetical, and then I'll deal with your statute.
Okay. The election happened on election day.
Even though it changes the outcome.
I mean, I think.
Yes, it has to be your answer, doesn't it?
I mean, yes, Your Honor. I want to be clear about
All right.
We are not agreeing that the outcome can be properly changed in that circumstance.
Well, hold on. It did in my hypothetical. You can't change my hypothetical, counsel.
And I'm just saying it's unlawful, Your Honor. I don't mean to disparage your hypothetical. I'm just saying that it's an unlawful circumstance because we don't allow ballot.
Oh, in Mississippi. Okay, but that hypothetical could happen in another state, right?
So you get
what if there were a planet, we'll call it Mars, and on Mars all the people are allowed to light their ballots on fire if they find out that their candidate rapes children.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
What do you say to that? No, don't tell me about we live on Earth. Follow my hypothetical.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is just a bizarre line of argument there. That in a hypothetical where a candidate urges people to recall what candidate would urge you to recall your ballot? Your opponent doesn't want you to vote for the guy you voted for anyway. So you're going to take the advice of the opponent to recall your ballot for the guy you just voted for. This is going to happen enough times to swing an election. All of these voter suppression tactics suppose the same hypothetical, quote unquote, that there's widespread fraud that influences every election, when in reality, there's almost zero fraud that influences zero races. That's the reality. So the idea that, well, couldn't you have mail recall, which I don't even know if mail recall is a thing at the post office. Maybe you can get like FedEx to pull a shipment or something, like if you go private. But like, once again, the idea that this is going to happen tens of thousands of times in any given race, whether it's a congressional race, a Senate race, right? The idea that that is going to happen enough times to even approach influencing the outcome of a race is just fucking absurd. Like, it's insane. It's insane to use that as a line of argument. No. Address my hypothetical. Wow. Okay, now there's one outlet that actually went against the grain on this and went out on a limb. And they had this guy, Josh Gerstein, was apparently in the court, listened to the whole thing. He's the one guy in the media who seems to think that the court is going to uphold the Mississippi law and preserve mail-in voting. Seems to me SCOTUS is likely to deliver a defeat to Trump and rule states can count ballots received after Election Day, with Roberts, Barrett, and maybe Kavanaugh joining the liberals. Again, he's the only guy who thinks this. So right now, I would say the odds are he's wrong, but maybe not. So here's what he says. Supreme Court worries Trump's attack on late ballots could also threaten early voting. Not all justices made clear where they stood on the issue during oral arguments Monday, but several questioned whether the RNC's position that votes can't be counted after Election Day would also mean votes can't be counted before Election Day. Millions of Americans rely on earlier absentee voting. Lawyers for both the federal government and the RNC insisted that they are not trying to end those practices. We agree with both sides that early voting is still acceptable, Solicitor General John Sauer told the court, citing Civil War practices. There could be a process where ballots are being received earlier, but that ballot box has to close on Election Day. Excuse me. That answer didn't seem to satisfy Chief Justice John Roberts, who suggested Sauer was making an arbitrary decision to treat early voting and late receipt of ballots differently. here is Steve Bannon talk about voter suppression. We played this video in a previous segment, but here he is talking about maybe ICE at the polls.
Media's head to blow up today. We can use what's happening with these ICE helping out at the airports. We can use this as a test run, as a test case to really perfect ICE's involvement in the 2026 midterm election, sir.
Yeah, I think we should have ICE agents at the polling places, because if you're an illegal alien, you can't vote, right? It's against the law. It's a federal crime for you to vote in federal elections. And so if you're an American citizen, you should be happy that ICE is there, because you're not going to have illegal aliens canceling out your vote.
Right. So whether it's deploying ICE agents to the polls or trying to make it more difficult to vote by mail, it's the same thing. You create a problem that is largely non-existent, almost entirely non-existent. I'm not going to tell you there's zero voter fraud or zero, illegal immigrants who weasel their way onto the rolls. I'm not sure how they would. Like, I'm not saying that does happen or doesn't. I'm just saying you can always find a case, a freak case of something happening that shouldn't be happening. And they use those examples in order to scare people into thinking that basically the only way Democrats win is by hundreds of thousands of illegals voting. And that's what they use to justify these tactics, which, I mean, ICE is the comical example of it, because it's so obviously an intimidation tactic to keep people home who just don't want to deal with the hassle of ICE at the polls. But this is also a way to create
or getting shot. Getting shot.
Yeah, something happens. Exactly.
Like literally.
Yeah. But this is also a way to create confusion around deadlines, around, is it too late to vote? Should I not bother? This also will deter a lot of people from voting by mail. Like, a lot of people are just going to choose not to vote by mail, which means they'll tend to vote in person. Now, you say, well, what's wrong with that? Well, in Republican-leaning areas, and this is why a big part of why a lot of Republicans tend to vote on Election Day, Republicans tend to live in lower population areas, rural areas, suburban areas where the lines are not long. If you suppress early and mail-in voting in urban areas, which are Democratic centers, now you're going to create very long lines day of at the polls, which is going to deter people from standing in line to vote. That's clearly what this is about. Whether it's about ICE or whether it's about suppressing mail-in voting, it's all a way to discourage participation in the process. And by the way, funny how the court heard that case yesterday, because it just broke today. President Trump, who is in the midst of pressuring senators to curb the use of mail-in voting, voted by mail in Tuesday's special election in Palm Beach County, Florida. So he voted by mail. So how do you like that? Yep. So we will see. The consensus for the most part is that the court is going to limit mail-in voting. That one reporter there who was at the hearing kind of stuck his neck out and went against the grain. We'll see what happens. We'll have more to report on this, obviously, in June or July. But it's very obvious. I mean, we saw this coming a mile away. When you look at the polls, when you look at not just the Democrat-Republican polls and the special election results, but when you look at the trends, when you look at just survey after survey of, more than half of the country saying they're worse off financially now than they were a year ago, and only about 15% saying they're better off, right? Or when you look at Trump's favorability ratings on issue after issue, just underwater, double digits is understating it. Underwater by 20 points on most issues, at least 20 points. On inflation, it's 30 points. There's no way they can win without shit like this. And so they're going to try it, because they're not just going to give up power so easily. And convincing people that they ought to vote for them seems to be not so viable a strategy at this point. So, yeah, expect more bullshit like this.
This is a good example of how what passes for civic conversation and public debate in America is all just really about people trying to gain power and using propaganda tactics that play on racial animus or different kind of identity group resentments to keep Americans fighting each other, which is part of why Americans are crazy and on psychoactive medications like no other country on earth, because that's a very toxic space to live in. Like this whole conversation is insane. I've been hearing this for decades. When I used to drive a horse and carriage, those guys tend to lean conservative. They're all like New York Post reading kind of people. I remember back then I used to hear, oh yeah, you got all these dead people voting, like you're in on something, like you're get the fuck out of here, man. What is this, 1910? Was this 19? Yeah, that used to happen. In New York, especially Tammany Hall used to, like, they're talking about stuff that happened 100 years ago. Like this is still happening now. Yeah, they used to stuff the ballots, and you had the ward healers who would, and there were people whose job it was to vote multiple times. That's 100 freaking years ago. There is no credible evidence that there is any mass voter fraud, and it just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter because a lot of people just like that story. A lot of people are very susceptible to the story. The reason your life sucks is because someone's getting something they're not supposed to get. That's the formula. And certain people are just very triggered by that story. And if you notice, once somebody buys into that story, there is nothing you could do to convince them otherwise, man. They just love that story too much. You could show them all the evidence you want. What do you mean? You don't think you should need an ID to vote? Why is it? Dude, these people don't care about you at all. Are you under the impression that the country is overwhelmingly in favor of the kind of mutant freaks that constitute the modern Republican Party? The only reason the Republicans have gotten into power is because the mutant freaks on the other side were even more repulsive than what these mutant freaks pretended to be. They didn't even run as what they actually are. That wouldn't have won even against Kamala, right? Trump ran as this anti-war guy who was going to reveal the Epstein files, right? He did exactly the opposite, but both teams are just mutant freaks, right? That Madison Square Garden rally, it was like idiocracy on steroids.
Yeah.
It was a bunch of freaks. Yeah, fucking Hulk Hogan, for God's sake, going up there. Like, it's just an absolute freak show to convince people. Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the underlying theme. The reason your life sucks is because people who shouldn't vote are voting. Right. Doesn't matter that there's no evidence. It's a story that a certain kind of person needs to hear because it gives them hope. It gives them hope that if you solve this problem, their life is going to get better. And also that more people think like them than actually do. See, we're going to get majorities if you get rid of the illegal because everyone agrees with me. No, they fucking don't. No, they don't. Look at the numbers, man. Most people think you're a moron. Yeah. That is most people. There's a very small base of people for whom this politics is appealing.
Yeah. And it's funny because most people are psyoped into thinking you should have an ID. Like it's 80% favorability because they don't understand. They think, well, what's wrong with making people, show ID? Well, what's wrong is, let's say you need to show proof of citizenship. So now you need what? 2 forms of ID. So what, you need a passport? Do you have your passport handy? Do you know where it is? Oh, I'll find it. Oh, really? You'll find it. What if you find it and it's expired and you can't vote? What if that's your form of ID if you don't have a driver's license? Like, the idea is that voting is a right. It's not a privilege. And I've heard people actually refer to it as a privilege, which is totally wrong. It's a right. Rights are supposed to be as easily fulfilled as possible. That's why they're called rights. They're not called privileges. Driving a car is a privilege. That's why you have to go through training and get licensed to do it. Right. Voting is not like that. You sign the paper where your name is so they know who you are, and you go ahead and you vote. And if you're not who you are, you could still only vote once because you're accounted for in the paper.
Exactly.
So there's no, so it's completely insane. Now, are you going to go to 5 different precincts and sign for 5 different people, assuming you know who lives there, you know what their name is,
Right.
and you're going to sign for them? And then what? If that person actually
Now,
shows
what happens
up,
when they show up?
what happens when they show up and they say, "Oh, you already voted," and they say, "No, I didn't. Here's my ID. I am who I am." Then they say, "Oh, well, now that other guy's going to go to jail for 5 years to win over 5 votes." Like, it doesn't. It's complete and total insanity. Now, you want to say the election system is fucked and we should be able to count results quicker and maybe get results in sooner. Okay, have a postmark deadline. You want to make a deadline 5 days in advance? Otherwise, you got to show up in person or whatever. At least then there's a deadline so people know. You can't have an arrive-by deadline because then people don't know when to mail it in. Like, there are countries whose election seasons run a lot smoother and they must not count ballots days after the fact. Like, if you look at a country, I don't want to say anything that I don't know, maybe Brazil has, ballots that they count after election day, but in general, the result within minutes. The polls close in Brazil, you find out who the president is 5 minutes later. Here it could hours, days into nights, paper ballots, computer ballots. So I'm not saying you can't clean up the process. I think you should clean up the process. I'm for paper ballots, by the way. I've always been for that. So there's a paper trail of every vote cast.
Right. Sure.
But to have these arbitrary rules where it has to arrive by a certain day, well, now you don't know what the deadline to vote is. Now you don't know when you have to mail it.
Right.
Now what?
Right.
You put it in the mail 2 days before. Maybe my vote's counted, maybe not. That's no way to do it. That the goal of that is to deter you from doing it, right? To scare you out of doing it.
Well, that's what this is all about.
It's all about.
Of course,
it's all the same thing.
Exactly. If not doing this, favored Republicans, they'd be jumping up and down about how un-American it is,
right?
To pass a law like to stop people from exercising their constitutional right. That's what you'd be hearing from every talking head on Fox.
Exactly. Vientikis, ICE is just destroying their own community, just like how cops making more and more bogus arrests anymore just raises their own property taxes from lawsuits. Thank you, Vientikis. 3 Tom the Bomb. Joe Ken's bravery seems almost too good to be true. I can't help but feel suspicious about it. I applaud his actions, but keeping my antenna up, not falling for fake hero control. Yeah, there's no hero control necessary. Yeah. You don't have to like him. Like, that doesn't even factor into it.
We don't like anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I don't like it. It doesn't even.
He barely likes me.
Exactly. I mean, to me, it's just like it's very online. In this business, what do we say? You're always as good as your last take. So people think your takes actually mean something. Your takes mean very little. I mean, it's good to talk. It's good to bounce ideas off each other. But of what material value is it in the world, whether you like Joe Kent or not? Nothing. That's not real.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
What's real is that he resigned. And he went on record saying Iran posed no imminent threat. And we did this for Israel. That's going to swing public opinion. Whether he did it for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, or whether he's a good guy or not a good guy, or whether you trust him or don't trust him, he did a thing. Mm-hmm. You evaluate the thing based on the thing. How did that move the needle? How did that change things? That, to me, is the metric. Not whether I trust him or like him. I don't trust him. I don't like him. I don't not trust him. I don't not like him. I don't think about that, honestly. Like, I don't waste any bandwidth thinking about how trustworthy a guy he is. Yeah. I know he quit for a good reason. That's all that matters. Period.
Yep.
Right. All right. Zoratash. Thank you for the $99.99. Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Kay, I'm sorry for the loss of your mother. Well, thank you. That's very kind of you to say. Appreciate that. I've been loving the music coverage. It's aces. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Russell, I'm still waiting for the New Orleans follow-up piece you teased in December after I told you how much I loved your video essay of the rampant racism in plain sight.
Yes. Well, I have a lot of footage and stuff from, I was there for 2 months. And what was that now? 2025 or 2024?
I think it was 24.
It was 24, right? Yeah, this is one of the things. I mean, now that I have this travel channel to put these essays on, once I'm done traveling, and even if I'm not in the US, I'm not going to be doing this. I mean,
Right.
at that point, I'll be like planted somewhere as a digital nomad. I'm going to start to try to clear some of that.
Vienticus. I remember the Missing in Action series. I also remember the first time I saw one of those propaganda movies and couldn't figure out why, years after the war, people would still be, ran out of characters there. But thank you. We've talked about that before as well. Russ, will you consider marrying me after you get your foreign citizenship? Says Siddhartha Vicious. Pick a polygamous country and mass marry all those dissidents and get us out of the U.S. Thank you, Siddhartha Vicious. John Smith, thanks for the $2. Appreciate that.
You know what? It's never been easier. It's never been easier because of the digital nomad phenomena. A lot of countries want to get in on the money that those people are going to bring to their economy. So a lot of countries, if you can work online, will let you go live there.
Mail-in ballot discussion always revolves around the mailing process, but never is there a mention of those who drop their mail-in ballots at polls. Well, if you drop it off, you know when it gets there. That's the thing. There's not a mystery there. If you go and you drop, because yeah, polling stations have a drop box where you could just drop it off and go. You know it's there. The issue with the mail-in is you just drop it in the mail 3 days before Election Day. It probably gets there on time, but how do you know, right?
Right.
That's what makes that harder. Andy Gardner, voting is so convoluted, almost seems deliberate. Yep. Todd for Florida. Who is to say that a shady election official couldn't just say they didn't receive mail-in votes in time, so they don't count? How is that any better? Again, like these things can, of course, happen. The question is, do they happen at a big enough scale to really make any difference at all? Like, yeah, hypothetically, anything can happen, right? The question, and also tampering with ballots like that is a very, very serious crime. So this is the other thing. Talk about high risk, low reward. What do you gain from doing that? Fucking, 17 people out of their vote. To what? To go to jail for 5 years if you get caught or whatever the penalty is? It's serious time. It's a federal crime.
Right.
Like it's a very
Right.
the idea that like people are out there doing this is insane. Like the reward is less than, robbing a candy store, Brad Gilbert, climate lockdowns to the left of me, energy lockdowns to the right. Here I am stuck knowing this is just uniparty marketing, the illusion of choice. Vienticus, Gorsuch's hypotheticals tend to take into account the possibility of someone quietly changing some other law or procedure. Siddhartha Vicious, next ICE will be cracking down on pirating Betamax tapes. Good one. Vienticus Prime, the ID to vote thing is specifically for digital ID. The very thing they all didn't want. Well, that too. Username, voting isn't merely a mechanism to get you to buy into your own oppression as if you were an active participant. You're not. They let you pick the wallpaper, not the jail cell. Thank you, username. Appreciate that very much. Let's see if we missed anything. No. All right, we're good. That's our show, everybody. Thanks very much for being here. For those who missed it, we'll be on the air between now and then. But Film Club will be the John Pilger documentary, Cambodia, Year Zero, Saturday night. We'll pick an exact time and announce it on Thursday.
And I'm going to the killing fields tomorrow.
Yeah, so that's part of why that is why we picked it. That's the reason we picked it. So thanks everybody very much for being here. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat, the YouTubers, the Rumblers. We'll see you all again Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern. Until then, please smash that like button on the way out, smash that subscribe button on YouTube, and that follow button on Rumble. We'll see you in a couple days. Until then, thanks very much for spending the afternoon with us. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.